Chapter 45. Siwa bro. At the same time, a black van was parked in front of an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of Songshan, but the license plate had been removed. Fuck, are these policemen crazy? Didn't they just rob $1 million? Do they have to do this? Baldy spat on the ground, pissed. Yeah, boss, we can't go on like this. Aren't we trapped here? Malu was frustrated as well. Fuck, this is bad. Alright, stop complaining. I'm waiting for Tsiwa bro's call. Baldy waved his hand impatiently. The phone rang, and Baldy quickly picked it up. Is this Tsiwa bro? I'm Baldy. What the fuck are you doing? A cold voice came from the other side of the phone. Tsiwa bro, what's wrong with me? Baldy paused. Did you take the money out of the bank? Tsiwa bro asked darkly. I just brought it out. What's the big deal? Baldy said, feeling wronged. It wasn't easy for him to rob a bank, and if he didn't take the money with him, wouldn't it be a waste? Pig brain. What did I tell you? I told you not to take the money. Are you fucking deaf? Tsiwa bro cursed. The cops wouldn't have put in so much effort to capture you if you didn't take the money. They're only working so hard because you took the money. Ah. Baldy thought about it and realized that it was indeed the case. It was all his fault for being greedy and causing a disaster. He quickly begged, Tsiwa bro, I'm risking my life for you. You can't just leave me like this. You have to save me. Humph. Is that girl alright? Tsiwa bro humphed coldly. Girl? What girl? Baldy blinked. Meng Yao. You didn't touch her, did you? Fuck. Tsiwa bro's voice was a little rushed. You're done for if you touch her. Ugh. Baldy stuttered as he remembered Meng Yao. I'm sorry, Tsiwa bro, she was rescued. What? Tsiwa bro shouted, you motherfucker, you didn't catch him. No. Baldy said with a trembling voice. Then you can fucking wait for your death. It was a mistake to ask you for help. Tsiwa bro cursed. You're a fucking piece of shit, you deserve to be arrested by the police. With that, Tsiwa bro hung up. Tsiwa bro, Tsiwa bro. Baldy panicked and started begging. Tsiwa bro, can you leave me alone? I'm your man. But after praying for a long time, Baldy realized that Tsiwa bro had hung up. Boss, what did Tsiwa bro say? Malu asked anxiously after Baldy put down the phone. Tsiwa bro abandoned us, we're done for. Baldy said dejectedly. Doomed. Malu was taken aback. What do you mean? Tsiwa bro doesn't care about us anymore. He doesn't care about us anymore, because we didn't catch that Chu Mengyao girl. Baldy sighed as he sat on the ground. Motherfucker, you fucking Baldy, it's all your fault. That girl wouldn't have been able to get away if you hadn't been kidnapped by that kid. Malu suddenly became agitated as he jumped up from the ground and pounced at Baldy. You dare to rebel? Baldy was stunned. He looked at Malu in disbelief as he punched himself. Why are you still trying to act tough at a time like this? Malu smiled coldly. You motherfucker, if that kid didn't take your gun, we wouldn't be in this state right now. Baldy said as he started fighting with Malu. Bang! Bang! 2 gunshots rang out, and Baldy and Malu fell into a pool of blood. Both of them died with their eyes wide open. It was Baldy's lackey who had been shouting at the bank. His name was Ji Lao San, and he was the most prestigious person in the group other than Baldy. He was the vice leader. Third bro. You. The remaining 2 lackeys looked at Ji Lao San in shock. These two people are too sentimental and blaming others. Old G snorted and said, "What time is it now? Fighting amongst ourselves. Sihua bro doesn't want us, so he doesn't want us anymore. But we have hands and legs, and most importantly, we have money. As long as we survive this, we'll be able to enjoy endless wealth. Don't you guys think so?" The two lackeys thought about it and agreed. Baldy and Malu were arguing endlessly, and fighting amongst each other was the scariest thing in a situation like this. If they weren't careful, they'd become a clue to the police, and they'd fall into the police's hands. Only by working together could they survive this crisis. The two lackeys nodded at the thought. After all, Baldy was dead, and Ji Lao San was now the leader. They could only place their hopes on Ji Lao San if they wanted to be safe. This money is enough for the three of us to spend for the rest of our lives. Ji Lao San opened the money pouch, revealing the bundles of banknotes inside. He knew that there was no point in saying anything right now. Money was the only thing that could buy people's hearts. We'll each get close to 500,000 in here. 2 less people means 1 less person to split the money with. Third bro. We'll leave everything to you 3. The two lackeys nodded in agreement. Ji Lao San nodded in satisfaction as he looked at Baldy and Malu's corpses in disdain. Both Meng Yao and Yushu almost overslept because they'd slept late last night. The two only crawled out of bed after the alarm had rung thrice, running to the bathroom to wash up. Lin Yi, on the other hand, woke up early and made 3 bowls of noodles. He started boiling water when he heard the commotion upstairs. He'd made Yangchun noodles yesterday, and Lin Yi was making chicken noodles today. There were still some leftovers from the braised chicken from yesterday, so Lin Yi decided to use the leftover chicken juice to make the soup. Lin Yi's noodles were done by the time Meng Yao and Yushu came downstairs. "Wow, it smells so good." Yushu's nose was sharp, and she picked up the smell immediately. She ran to the dining room happily. "Yao Yao, your shield bro made noodles for us again." Meng Yao had wanted to follow Yushu to the dining room, but Yushu's words stopped her in her tracks. It was Lin Yi's noodle. Should she go? Meng Yao would have turned around and walked away, pretending that she hadn't smelled anything, if it was for the sake of her pride and face. But the smell of the noodles was too tempting. Chapter 46. Chapter 46, Getting Close to the Dean. Wow, it smells so good. It's so delicious. Yushu commented as she ate. What was the big deal? She'd had a bowl yesterday anyway, it wouldn't make a difference. Meng Yao gritted her teeth as she walked towards the dining room. Meng Yao's actions weren't missed by Lin Yi at all, and Lin Yi smiled faintly. This Meng Yao was quite an interesting character. "Meng Yao, come eat your noodles," Lin Yi encouraged, hoping to motivate Meng Yao even more. "Thanks." Meng Yao's voice was as quiet as a mosquito's, surprising both Lin Yi and Yushu. Was this still Meng Yao? Meng Yao picked up her chopsticks as she sat down at the dining table. She felt like crying as she stared at the fragrant noodles in front of her, wondering if she'd gone a little too far with Lin Yi. He was actually a really good person. Yeah, at least he was a qualified nanny. Falbert's car stopped in front of the villa punctually at 7 in the morning, and Meng Yao, Yushu, and Lin Yi walked out of the villa. Meng Yao didn't say anything, but there was less hostility in her eyes now as she looked at Lin Yi. "Mr. Lin, according to the doctor's orders, you'll have to go to the hospital to get your bandages changed," Falbert said. "I'll send Miss Chu and Miss Chen to school first, and then I'll drive you to the hospital to get your bandages changed." "All right." Lin Yi nodded after some thought. The wound on his leg wasn't that big of a deal, but he didn't want people to think of him as a monster. "Miss Chu, can you help Mr. Lin apply for leave?" Falbert asked in a negotiating tone. Meng Yao didn't know what to say. She didn't hate Lin Yi that much anymore, but asking for leave on Lin Yi's behalf. How could she do that? Wouldn't everyone know that she was living with Lin Yi then? Falbert thought that Meng Yao and Lin Yi were still in conflict, so he turned to Yushu. Miss Chen, why don't you help Mr. Lin apply for leave? It's fine with me, it's just that Yao Yao doesn't want people to know that she's living with Lin Yi. Yushu said innocently, but emphasized the word living with. Li Fu slapped his forehead, realizing that Meng Yao was worried about that. That was true, how could a girl say something like that? Meng Yao didn't want to say it out. Meng Yao glared at Yushu. Yushu stuck her tongue out and shut her mouth. She'd said what she needed to say anyway. It's fine, I'm pretty familiar with the dean, Wang Jifeng. I've got his number here. I'll give him a call later and ask him to contact the class teacher. Lin Yi said with a smile. Yao, Mayo and to Yushu was Yao, Y was. Long as long the Dean, long Ridyu, Lin. That didn't seem possible. But if he didn't know the dean, he couldn't say something like that. Wouldn't his lie be exposed? Meng Yao and Yushu weren't the only ones who were surprised. Even Falbert was surprised. How did Lin Yi know the dean? Lin Yi saw through their confusion as well. He turned to Falbert. Falbert, can I borrow your phone for a while? Oh, of course. Falbert said as he handed his phone to Lin Yi. Lin Yi took out a piece of paper from his pocket. There was still some blood on it. He had accidentally stained it yesterday. He dialed the number on the paper, and the call went through after a while. Hello, is this Yushu? Lin Yi asked. Yes. Who is this? Jifeng was busy with his lover. He jumped when the phone rang. He picked it up and saw that it was an unknown number. His tone was a little unfriendly. I'm Lin Yi. Yushu, I hope I didn't disturb you. Lin Yi said with a smile. No. Yushu's heart skipped a beat. His tone became very friendly. Oh, it's Lin Yi. Look, how can I have anything good? Class is about to start. It's like this. I have something to trouble you with, Yushu. Lin Yi smiled. He didn't expose Yushu's lie. Yushu's tone was very nervous. It was obvious that he was doing something wrong. What is it? Let's hear it. Wang Jifeng secretly sighed in his heart. Sigh, it seems that my weakness has finally been caught. The next day, something came to find me. It's like this. I have something to do this morning, so I might be a little late. Please tell my homeroom teacher and ask for a leave. I'll be there around 10. Lin Yi said. Oh, that's it. Sure, no problem. When Wang Jifeng heard that it was a small matter, he immediately heaved a sigh of relief. Wasn't this easy to settle? It was just a phone call. Thank you, Yushu. I won't disturb you any longer. Please continue. Lin Yi said meaningfully. This kid. Jifeng put down the phone helplessly and went back to his work. Lin Yi, you really know Yushu. And you look really close. Yushu's mouth was wide open as she looked at Lin Yi in disbelief. I just met him yesterday, we just hit it off. Lin Yi, naturally, wasn't going to spill the beans about Wang Jifeng. He gave a vague explanation. Oh. Yushu cheered. That's great. I'll look for you if I need a leave in the future. Lin Yi smiled bitterly as he looked at Li Fu, who didn't have any expression on his face. Li Fu seemed to have run out of ideas on how to deal with the two girls, turning a deaf ear to their plan to skip class. All right. Lin Yi nodded. Li Fu, on the other hand, was re-evaluating Lin Yi. The young man looked like a normal guy, but his wits and bravery were undeniable. From the looks of it, his social skills were quite strong as well. And his ability to pick up girls. Even the police beauty Ling Shan, Faubert felt a headache coming on at the thought the two princesses wouldn't fall into his clutches, would they? It seemed like he should find some time to talk to Mr. Chu about Lin Yi. Meng Yao and Yushu got out of the car at the entrance of Songshan's first hospital, and Faubert drove Lin Yi to Songshan's First People's Hospital. They passed by a mobile store on the way, and Faubert stopped the car in front of the store. He turned to Lin Yi. Mr. Lin, you should get a phone as well. It'll be hard to keep in touch. Lin Yi nodded. He wouldn't be borrowing Faubert's phone to make calls otherwise. Chapter 47. Guan Axian Lin Yi was here to buy a phone, and so he went straight to the counter. Meng Yao and Yushu were both using Nokia E7S, and Lin Yi quite liked them. He picked one up and paid a few thousand kuai for a free phone. Faubert swiped his card before Lin Yi could pay, smiling at Lin Yi. These are daily necessities, we should be the ones providing them. Lin Yi didn't argue with Faubert after hearing that. A few thousand kuai was a lot to him, but it wasn't even worth mentioning to Faubert and Pingzhan. Faubert might be a chauffeur, but a chauffeur holding shares in Pingzhan Industries wasn't much, but it was enough to show how important Faubert was in Pingzhan's heart. The traffic on the streets got heavier after the phone was bought, and it was rush hour. Faubert smiled bitterly. Looks like it'll take up a lot of time again. Speaking of which, Mr. Lin, why are you so close with Dean Wang? I talked to him a bit when I went to register yesterday, and we hit it off pretty well. He left me his number, telling me to look for him if I need anything. Lin Yi said with a smile. I see. Faubert didn't quite believe it, but Lin Yi didn't want to talk about it, so he didn't press him. They finally arrived at People's First Hospital, but it was already 8:30 in the morning. They'd walked for about an hour before they arrived. They found Dr. Sun Weiman, who was very happy to see Lin Yi. He smiled at him. Little hero, you're here. You're recovering pretty fast, aren't you? You can even walk like that. Anyone else would have been using crutches. Dr. Sun, please don't call me little hero. It's a little awkward. Plus, I'm no hero. Lin Yi was embarrassed by Sun Weiman's stare. Lin Yi felt that there was something wrong with Sun Weiman's smile. He deserves to be a hero. You deserve it. Sun Weiman waved his hand and smiled like an elder. But young man, you're a bit too romantic. Yesterday's incident with that female police officer has become the talk of the hospital. Even the policewoman admires you, little hero. Ha! Lin Yi suddenly broke out in a sweat. No way. People always said that news traveled very fast on campus. Could it be that news traveled very fast in the hospital as well? Okay, I won't tease you anymore. Sun Weiman smiled as he wrote down a medical advice and handed it over to Lin Yi. Take this to the treatment room. All right. Lin Yi hurriedly took the medical advice and ran out of Sun Weiman's treatment room. His back was drenched in cold sweat. If that girl Ling Shan were to hear about what happened today, it'd be a huge problem. He tried his best to convince her last night, but she'd had nothing to say about it. Wouldn't she come looking for him when she realized what had happened? Just thinking about it gave Lin Yi a headache. The treatment room was right in front of the treatment room. Lin Yi knocked on the door. A very gentle voice came from inside, please come in. The voice of a beautiful nurse was really nice to hear. Lin Yi opened the door casually and walked in. Hello, I'm here to change my dressing. Ah. The nurse in the treatment room raised her head in surprise and looked at Lin Yi. You're okay. What do you mean I'm okay? I haven't changed my dressing yet. Lin Yi didn't know what was going on. The nurse was quite pretty, with a round face and big eyes. Was she a psychopath or something? You don't recognize me. Guan Axian pouted and looked at Lin Yi with a pitiful look. Yesterday was Guan Axian's first month's salary. She was very happy. She was finally independent. She didn't need to be called a money worshipper by her family anymore. In fact, Guan Axian didn't lack money. On the contrary, her family was very rich. But Guan Axian didn't want that. She wanted to work hard and earn her own money. After graduating from medical school, Guan Axian stayed in Songshan's First People's Hospital as a nurse. In fact, in this era of fierce competition, it wasn't easy to be a nurse. Many beautiful girls had to lower their heads to get the job they wanted. But Guan Axian's family background was there. Sleeping with the daughter of a hospital shareholder. Wouldn't that be suicidal? Who would dare? Guan Axian went to the treatment room under the guidance of the hospital's director. The director let Guan Axian stay there because the director of the surgery department, Sun Weiben, was a very upright person. Otherwise, if there was a scandal of a doctor flirting with a shareholder's daughter, he might as well resign. After work, Guan Axian happily ran to the bank to withdraw her salary and enjoy the joy of making money. Due to the special nature of the nursing profession, almost all banks were closed after work. Guan Axian had no choice but to walk a long way to the only bank that was open 24 hours. She didn't think that she'd run into a bank robbery. When the robbers barged into the bank and started shooting, Guan Axian's mind went blank. She followed what everyone else was doing and squatted on the ground with the rest of the crowd. Originally, he thought that after this period of time, he would wait for the robbers to steal the money and leave, but he did not expect the police to surround the bank. The robbers had to find a hostage as a bargaining chip with the police. When the robbers walked towards her, Guan Axian was very scared. She was afraid that the robbers would choose her. She didn't expect that the robbers would choose a girl not far from her who looked about the same age as her. What surprised Guan Axian was that the boy in front of her suddenly stood up and volunteered to be the robber's hostage. Many people wouldn't even be able to hide in a situation like this. Who would volunteer to be the robber's hostage? Guan Axian admired the boy's bravery. But the robbers didn't hold back and shot at him. Guan Axian's heart almost jumped out of her chest. But what Guan Axian didn't understand was that the boy tilted his body and then straightened his body. Why did he do that in a situation like this? Guan Axian didn't have time to think as the gunshot sounded. The boy was shot, but he didn't make a sound as he silently endured the bullet hitting his leg. Chapter 48. An ambiguous moment. Guan Axian overheard all the doctors and nurses talking about a man named Lin Yi when she got to work this morning. She didn't think much of it at first, thinking it was just some gossip, but it turned out that they were talking about yesterday's bank robbery. Guan Axian, as the person involved, had the most right to speak. Everyone went into an uproar when she said that the young man in front of her stood up and offered to be a hostage. So it was all true. That young man from yesterday was a hero. Sun Weiman had told everyone about it, but the police didn't disclose the details, so most people thought that Lin Yi was just bragging to Sun Weiman. But now that Guan Axian had seen it with her own eyes, Lin Yi really was a little hero. What? He came to the hospital for treatment yesterday. That means he's out of the robbers' control. Guan Axian was overjoyed at Sun Weiman's words, as if a heavy stone had been lifted from her heart. She hadn't slept well the night before because she was worried about Lin Yi and that girl, but now she could finally relax. That's right. Sun Weiman smiled. Lin Yi, he's not simple at all. But Axian, you're really lucky. Lin Yi said yesterday that he could have dodged the bullet when the gunman opened fire, but he saw that there was a girl behind him. If he dodged, the bullet would have hit the girl, so he took the bullet head-on instead. And that lucky girl seems to be you. Ah. So that's what happened. Guan Xian's mouth was wide open. No wonder he leaned to the side and straightened his body, he was afraid of hurting her. Ha, Axian, Lin Yi has to come to the hospital to change his bandages later. I'll tell him to go find you. Sun Weimin smiled. Sun Weimin didn't know Guan Xian's real identity, but the dean had told him that Guan Xian was sent here by someone important, and that he should take care of her. Sun Weimin had always been a very modest person. He did not need the director to greet him. He was very kind to the people in the department, especially the young people. He would try his best to give them advice and would never hide anything. Guan Xian's face reddened. A hero saving a damsel in distress like this was bound to make people think too much. Especially in such a dramatic way. After Lin Yi was injured, he went to the hospital where she was treated. Lin Yi looked at the attractive nurse in front of him. He felt that she looked familiar, but he didn't know where he had seen her before. However, her words, "Don't you recognize me?" made Lin Yi's hair stand on end. Why do I feel like a heartless man who cheated a girl of her feelings? You are. Lin Yi looked at the girl in front of him suspiciously. He wanted to find some clues from her big bright eyes, but unfortunately, Lin Yi still couldn't remember who she was. It was no wonder. She was just a passerby that Lin Yi met yesterday. He didn't even know her name, so there was no way that Lin Yi would have any impression of her. Thank you for blocking the bullet for me yesterday. Guan Xian was a bit disappointed that Lin Yi didn't recognize her. She took the initiative to tell him how they met. Ah, it's you. Lin Yi finally remembered who the girl in front of him was. She was the girl behind him at the bank yesterday. You remember. Guan Xian was a bit happy that Lin Yi remembered her. Actually, the robber was going to shoot me yesterday. I can't hurt others just because I dodged the bullet, so you don't need to thank me. Lin Yi explained. You don't need to feel bad about it. Oh. Guan Xian didn't know what to say after hearing Lin Yi's words. She nodded, and the atmosphere became a bit awkward. All right, help me change the bandages. Lin Yi smiled. Nice to meet you, pretty nurse. I'm Guan Xian. Guan Xian was amused by Lin Yi. She took the medical order from Lin Yi and started preparing the medicine. When she was done, she saw that Lin Yi was still standing there. She couldn't help but laugh. What are you doing? Hurry up and take off your pants. Guan Xian's face reddened involuntarily after she said that. This was actually the first time Guan Xian had to deal with a man's wound. In the past, Sun Weimin would always hand it over to the married female nurses in the department. These young nurses would usually take care of superficial wounds on the hands and feet. But today's situation was different. Lin Yi was Guan Xian's savior, and Sun Weimin wanted to hand Lin Yi over to Guan Xian. Guan Xian didn't object to it, and so the matter was settled. Ugh. That's not too good. Lin Yi was starting to feel a bit embarrassed. He hadn't even taken off his pants yesterday, and there was already a rumor going around with Ling Shan. If he took his pants off today, wouldn't it be even worse? Guan Xian didn't feel embarrassed when she saw a man like Lin Yi acting coy. Instead, she found it funny. I'm a nurse, what are you doing behind my back? You know, patients have no privacy in front of a doctor. Be a good boy and take off your pants. Guan Xian felt her face heat up. Why did she feel like a perverted sister trying to kidnap a little boy? Lin Yi sweated profusely, but after thinking it over, Guan Xan was a nurse. It shouldn't be a big deal if he took off his pants in front of her. He unbuckled his belt and took off his pants before sitting down on a chair. That's my chair, but you can take it. Guan Xan was a little embarrassed when she saw Li Yi sitting on her office chair with only his underwear on. She thought about it and decided that it was fine. Lin Yi, on the other hand, was a little apologetic. I didn't know this was your chair. Do you want me to switch? Forget it, your leg's injured. Don't switch it around, Guan Xan said as she squatted down and started examining the bandages on Lin Yi's leg. She didn't think that Lin Yi, who looked so skinny, had such muscles on his legs. No wonder he was able to leave with the criminals after getting shot. Guan Xan was a little surprised. Guan Xan carefully unwrapped the bandages, but the more careful she was, the more nervous she got. Especially when she saw the bulge in Lin Yi's underwear, Guan Xan felt her breathing quicken. Her hands trembled slightly, and her face was as red as the sunset. Guan Xan was nervous, but Lin Yi wasn't any better. A beautiful girl in a nurse's uniform squatting down on his crotch. It was inevitable that his imagination would run wild. Chapter 49. Find me tomorrow. Guan Xan was feeling the warmth of Guan Xan's hand. She'd accidentally touched Lin Yi, so she couldn't help but lower her head in embarrassment. She didn't want Lin Yi to see the look on her face, and that was when tragedy struck. Ah! Guan Xan couldn't help but cry out as she stood up, but she was too embarrassed to even lift her head up. Lin Yi looked at Guan Xan's face helplessly. Who told you to touch him? But since it had already happened, he had no choice but to apologize awkwardly. I'm sorry. I couldn't help myself. Guan Xan felt bad when Lin Yi apologized to her first. She knew very well that Lin Yi had been acting normally, and it was only because she'd accidentally touched him that he'd reacted. She was the one to blame. It's not your fault. I'm a nurse, I shouldn't have cared about stuff like that. It's just that my thoughts were a bit impure. Guan Xan explained. If it had been anyone else, Guan Xan wouldn't have been so nice to them. She'd have slapped them a long time ago, but Lin Yi was different. He was her savior, and Guan Xan was filled with guilt at the gunshot wound. She thought that he'd gotten shot because of her, and that was why she was being so nice to him. He's all right. Lin Yi pointed at his lower body, a little self-deprecatingly. Let's continue, yeah. Guan Xan nodded, putting aside the awkwardness from before as she carefully changed Lin Yi's bandages. Hiss. The bandages stuck to the wound, and Lin Yi gritted his teeth at the feeling of it tearing. The wound's healing pretty well. I can't believe you had the surgery yesterday. Guan Xan looked at the wound on Lin Yi's leg, a little surprised. Yes, my skin fits better, Lin Yi explained. He definitely couldn't tell her that it was because he practiced the art of dragon mastery. Both of them looked a little awkward after the medicine was changed, but it was Guan Xan who smiled generously. You can come back in 3 days. Just come find me. Okay. Lin Yi nodded and ran out of the Department of Surgery's treatment room as if he was fleeing. He only breathed a sigh of relief when he reached the ground floor. What an embarrassing day. Faubert had been waiting for Lin Yi in the car. Lin Yi didn't let him go up just now because he had no problem moving, so Lin Yi didn't want to torment Faubert. Did you change the medicine? Seeing Lin Yi coming out of the hospital, Faubert opened the door and asked. Yes, it's done. Lin Yi nodded. But you still have to come back tomorrow to see how the wound is healing. You can come back the next day. Guan Xan actually wanted Lin Yi to come back the day after tomorrow since she was off work the next day, but she was afraid that Lin Yi's wound would change again. That was why she wanted him to see how it was healing first. Lin Yi remembered the awkwardness of changing the medicine, and he didn't want to do it a second time. It wasn't a good feeling to see but not touch. I've contacted Mr. Chu and told him about what happened yesterday. Faubert started the car and said to Lin Yi. What did Mr. Chu say? Lin Yi asked quickly. Mr. Chu said he'll come back immediately, and we'll talk about it when he gets back. Faubert said. But Mr. Chu said that he has an inkling of who's behind this. Oh. Lin Yi froze. He didn't expect Peng Zhan to be so smart, figuring out who the mastermind was so quickly. It was already past the rush hour, and there were fewer cars on the road. Soon, Faubert drove the car to the entrance of First Middle School. Lin Yi got out of the car and waved at Faubert. Lin Yi carried his backpack and stepped into the school. The field was empty, and there were only a few students playing basketball. Evidently, they were the bad students who didn't go to class normally. Bang! A basketball rolled towards Lin Yi. Hey, kid, throw the basketball over here. A student with long hair and a black shirt shouted at Lin Yi. Lin Yi was in a hurry to go to class, so where would he find the time to pick up the ball? Moreover, the basketball didn't just reach Lin Yi's feet, but there was a certain distance between it and Lin Yi's feet. Motherfucker, I'm talking to you, didn't you hear me? Zhou Ruoming was immediately displeased. In this school, was there a student who dared to disobey him? Lin Yi heard Zhou Ruoming's curses, and he couldn't help but frown. Although Lin Yi didn't know who his parents were since he was young, it was still very displeasing to hear such insults. Lin Yi slowly turned around to look at Ruoming, pointing at him before pointing at himself. Were you talking about me? Yes, it's you. Are you fucking deaf? I'll count to 3, throw the ball to me, and we'll be fine. Otherwise, I'll fucking kick you out of this school. Zhou Ruoming looked at Lin Yi's clothes and knew that he was a poor student, so he didn't have any scruples when he spoke. Lin Yi didn't say anything. He walked straight to the direction where the basketball rolled, then he bent down and picked up the basketball. A group of lackeys around Zhou Ruoming cheered. Zhou Ruoming enjoyed the feeling of others kneeling under his feet. This feeling of being the school's overlord made him extremely refreshed. Brother Ming is still the most prestigious. One word, and that kid had to pick up the ball obediently. He was scolded, but he didn't even dare to fart. One of Zhou Ruoming's supporters praised him flatteringly. Humph, he's just a poor student. Zhou Ruoming said proudly, in this school, a person who dares to go against me, Zhou Ruoming, hasn't been born yet. Lin Yi stood up and turned to Zhou Ruoming with the basketball in his arms. Zhou Ruoming made a posture of getting ready to catch the ball, and signaled Lin Yi to throw the basketball over. Lin Yi looked at Zhou Ruoming's flashy look, and a slight curve appeared at the corner of his mouth. He suddenly raised his hand, and the basketball flew from his hand to Zhou Ruoming at high speed. Of course, Zhou Ruoming didn't realize that danger was approaching him. He still made a posture of catching the ball with his hands in front of him, ready to catch the basketball thrown by Lin Yi. Bang! The basketball hit Zhou Ruoming's hand. At first, Zhou Ruoming was still complacent about being able to catch the basketball from such a long distance. A group of lackeys around him also cheered and shouted flatteringly, Brother Ming is so handsome. He's simply the new Jordan. Chapter 50. A Murder Caused by a Basketball, Part 1, Ouch. Zhou Ruoming howled in pain. His wrist had been dislocated, and the ball had gone through his hands, heading straight for his face. Bang! Another loud sound. Zhou Ruoming didn't even have time to scream before he fell to the ground with blood spurting out of his nose. His blood formed a rainbow in the air, a cold beauty to it. Ruoming fainted from the slap, and his lackeys who were playing with him were dumbfounded as well. Was this still a basketball game? It was like a cannonball. Lin Yi looked at the culprit again, as if nothing had happened. He dusted his hands off and continued on his way to the school building. Lin Yi sneered inwardly. Trying to act cool. That's the least I can do. If there's a next time, I'll beat you until you can't even take care of yourself. That kid hit Ming bro. We can't let him get away. Someone called out, and Ruoming's lackeys snapped back to their senses. All of them turned to look at Lin Yi, who wasn't too far away. Lin Yi turned around impatiently when he heard the yell. He swept a cold glance over them, sneered, and continued walking towards the building. Everyone shuddered when Lin Yi's cold gaze swept over them. It was a beautiful wish to avenge Ming bro, but when it came to it. They looked at Zhou Ruoming's deformed wrist, his face covered in blood, and no one knew if he was dead or alive. They all flinched. This was the work of a basketball. With Zhou Ruoming as an example, no one dared to provoke Lin Yi. Who was the dumbest? Even their boss was lying on the ground. What else could they do that was better than Zhou Ruoming? The group of people lowered their heads. The subordinate who had shouted earlier also shut his mouth. Everyone hurriedly carried Zhou Ruoming and rushed to the school hospital. Pinliang didn't go to school today. He called up one of his father's underlings, Heibao Bro. Heibao Bro was part of the underworld in Songshan, and he was in charge of his father's nightclub, Golden Age. Pinliang had asked him to teach Lin Yi a lesson, but Heibao Bro hadn't thought much of it at first. It was just a student, after all. There was no need for him to do it himself. He'd just send a few of his lackeys and they'd be able to take care of it. Pinliang's group couldn't even handle a student, and he was quite disdainful of them. However, he didn't say it out loud because of Pinliang's father. After all, he was the young master of the corporation. Brother Heibao was not stupid. Why would he offend him for no reason? However, he still couldn't let go of his pride to deal with a little cub. Pinliang, however, couldn't take Pinliang's coaxing and pestering, saying that the new transfer student was very strong, and that he was a martial artist. Heibao Bro had no choice but to bring his men to take a look. He'd finally gotten Heibao Bro's help, and Pinliang was filled with joy. Heibao Bro was famous for his fighting prowess. There was once a guy from the provincial mixed martial arts team who got drunk and caused a scene in a nightclub. Many security guards couldn't do anything to him, but Heibao Bro had taken that professional out in just a few rounds. Pinliang couldn't help but be impressed. As far as he was concerned, as long as Heibao Bro was involved, that Lin Yi kid could eat shit today. He wouldn't stop until he made him kneel in front of him and call him Liang Bro. However, Pinliang, Gao Xiaofu, and Zhang Naipeo had arrived at school early, and Lin Yi was nowhere to be seen by the time the first class started. Pinliang was starting to panic. Was the kid scared and not coming? Didn't that mean he'd wasted his time looking for Heibao Bro? There was no point in staying in the classroom without Lin Yi. With a wave of his hand, he left the classroom with Gao Xiaofu and Naipeo. Liang Bro, do you think that Lin Yi kid got scared after he went back yesterday? Maybe he pissed us off and decided not to come to school anymore. Xiaofu analyzed. That's a possibility. Pinliang frowned as well. This was what he was worried about the most. No way, he can hide for a while, but can he hide forever? Unless he doesn't want to study here anymore, but he just transferred yesterday. Is he going to quit today? Naipeo was quite troubled as well. Why was Lin Yi not coming to school after just one day? Fuck, it's been a long day. You know, Heibao Bro doesn't have time every day, he has to help my dad look after the place. My dad's gonna skin me alive if he finds out that I asked him to help me fight. Pinliang said worriedly. Man, you're right. If your dad agreed to let you be a gangster and let Heibao bro be your bodyguard, Liang bro, you'd be even better than Zhou Ruoming. That's all because he has a gangster brother to back him up. Xiaofu said. Let's not talk about that. My dad's counting on me to get into a good university. Pinliang sighed. If Lin Yi really didn't come today, then we'd lose a good chance to teach him a lesson. It'd be hard to get another chance like this in the future. Kong Xiaobo's here. Should we get Heibao bro to teach him a lesson? Naipeo was still holding a grudge against Kong Xiaobo for kicking him yesterday. Fuck, you motherfucker, Kong Xiaobo doesn't need Heibao bro to do anything. We'll beat him up with just a few of us. Xiaofu rolled his eyes. Can't you come up with any good ideas? Me? Come up with something good then. Naipeo said, a little pissed off. Alright, you two, stop arguing. Pinliang waved his hand impatiently, finding a step to sit down at the edge of the arena. He took out a cigarette and put it in his mouth. Piak. Naipeo quickly took out his lighter and lit it for Pinliang, smiling awkwardly. Looks like Zhou Ruoming's group is playing basketball over there. Liang bro, should we go over and play a bit? Xiaofu said as he pointed at the group playing basketball on the other side of the court. Not interested. Pinliang looked at Zhou Ruoming and the others, shaking his head. If Lin Yi doesn't come soon, then I'll have to call Heibao bro and tell him to come another day. Liang bro. Liang bro. Look, look. Naipeo called out all of a sudden. Fuck, what the fuck are you shouting for? Pinliang was quite taken aback by Naipeo's sudden outburst. He glared at him, not in a good mood. It's not Liang bro, it's Lin Yi. Naipeo stuttered. What do you mean it's not Liang bro, it's Lin Yi? I haven't changed my name yet, fuck, no matter how weak I am, I'll never change my name to Lin Yi. Pinliang said with a frown. Chapter 51. A Basketball Case, Part 2, What? Lin Yi? He's here. Where is he? Pinliang was startled as well, raising his head to look in the direction Naipeo was pointing at. As expected, Lin Yi was walking in leisurely in his school uniform, his bag slung over his shoulder. Fuck, this guy's pretty relaxed. Naipeo wasn't very happy looking at Lin Yi's carefree face. He'd almost gotten a concussion from the guy yesterday, and he still had a bump on his head and a couple of band-aids on his face. Just thinking about it pissed him off. Liang bro, should we go over? Xiaofu said subconsciously. Go over? Why the hell would we go over? You think you can beat him? Pinliang said as he looked at Xiaofu. Did Lin Yi think he was that good at fighting? Wasn't he the same as yesterday? Xiaofu reacted immediately. The three of them had been beaten to a pulp by Lin Yi yesterday, and going over now was just asking for trouble. He shrunk his head and looked at Lin Yi helplessly. Pinliang and the other two were still pissed off when they saw Zhou Ruoming stop Lin Yi and let him pick up the ball. They stared at Lin Yi as if they were watching a good show. Ha, this is great. Someone's going to take care of Lin Yi for us. Xiaofu said as he watched the situation unfold. Zhou Ruoming was a ruthless man, especially with a gangster brother. If Lin Yi were to get into a conflict with him, he wouldn't even need to go after Lin Yi. Zhou Ruoming would be the one to kill him. With Lin Yi's personality, there's no way he'd let him pick up the ball, Naipeo said proudly. Zhou Ruoming's pretty good at fighting, this is going to be a good show. Pinliang, on the other hand, was quite interested in the conflict between Lin Yi and Zhou Ruoming. If it was as Naipeo said, then it'd be nice to let Zhou Ruoming beat up Lin Yi first. Aw. It can't be, right? When did Lin Yi become so weak? Gao Xiaofu's jaw dropped when he saw Lin Yi walk over to pick up the bowl. Was this still the same Lin Yi from yesterday? Yesterday's Lin Yi wasn't like this. Could it be his twin brother? This Lin Yi is infuriating. Pin Liang clenched his fists. He's such a pushover. He's so obedient in front of Zhou Ruoming. Is he looking down on me? I swear to kill him. Naipeo and Xiaofu were pissed as well. This was a provocation, a naked provocation. Were they any worse than Zhou Ruoming and the others? While the three of them were still angry, a dramatic scene happened. Lin Yi threw the basketball, and it hit Zhou Ruoming's hand. It went through his hand and hit his face. After that, Zhou Ruoming's nose started bleeding, and he fell to the ground. Fuck, no way. Naipeo's mouth was wide open. I knew Lin Yi wasn't a good person. There's no way he'd be this obedient. Pin Liang let out a sigh of relief. To be honest, he was pissed that Lin Yi had lowered his head to Zhou Ruoming, and now that he'd seen Zhou Ruoming fall to Lin Yi like he had yesterday, he was finally able to vent his frustration. Zhou Ruoming wasn't even as good as he was yesterday. Zhou Ruoming's really unlucky this time. Fuck, who told him to piss off that Lin Yi kid? He's a fucking lunatic. Xiaofu couldn't help but gloat at Lin Yi's actions on the balcony yesterday. Looks like only Heibao bro can take him on. We're not his match at all. Pin Liang was still a little pissed off yesterday, thinking that Lin Yi had only beaten the three of them because of the element of surprise, but today they realized just how terrifying Lin Yi was. He was super strong, and he'd been able to knock Zhou Ruoming out with a basketball from so far away. That's true. Naipeo nodded in agreement. Looks like we shouldn't mess with this guy, he's a violent maniac. Lin Yi, naturally, didn't know that the guy he'd just hit was Zhou Ruoming, one of the Big Four, but he wouldn't hold back even if he did. Big Four. I'll turn you into a Big Four. Lin Yi came to Class 5's classroom and knocked on the door. Come in. The homeroom teacher, Miss Lu's voice came from inside. It was her math class. Miss Lu, something came up at home. Sorry I'm late. Lin Yi said politely as he pushed the door open. He'd already spoken to the dean, but he didn't want to use that relationship to pressure the teacher. After all, he still had to work under the teacher in the future. Miss Lu had already received the dean's instructions this morning, so she didn't say anything. She only nodded. All right, come in. Lin Yi walked into the classroom obediently and went back to his seat. Yushu looked at Lin Yi, shocked. She turned to Meng Yao. Yao Yao, why do I feel like he's not hurt? His leg was shot. How can he walk so fast? Who knows? Meng Yao glanced at Lin Yi and curled her lips. Maybe he's just happy with his love life. Meng Yao didn't know why, but she remembered the scene between Ling Shan and Lin Yi in the hospital yesterday. Ling Shan, that little vixen, I thought she was all high and mighty. Yushu said angrily as she recalled the scene yesterday. She was even more upset that her brother would like a woman like that. Although, in Yushu's eyes, Lin Yi was still passable, he was a handsome and capable man. But he couldn't compare to her brother. She couldn't let go of the fact that Ling Shan liked Lin Yi. Lin Yi, naturally, didn't know that the two girls in front of him were talking about him. Lin Yi took out his math textbook and flipped to the page where the teacher was revising. He listened to the class quietly. All the classes had ended, and the only thing he had to do now was to revise what he'd learned in the past. Although Lin Yi hadn't gone to school, he had studied high school and university courses under old Lin's supervision. He didn't feel tired at all when listening to Miss Lu. Lin Yi wasn't some kind of prodigy, but his memory was better than most people's. Plus, the internet was so advanced that all sorts of materials and courses could be downloaded. It wasn't hard for him to study on his own. Looking at Pinliang, Xiaofu, and Naipeo's seats, Lin Yi realized that they weren't in the classroom. Could it be that they were too heavily injured and couldn't come? But Lin Yi didn't care if they lived or died. Let them be. It was better if they didn't come if they wanted to. It'd be better if they didn't come. Chapter 52. Heibao Bro. The class was halfway through by the time Lin Yi entered the classroom. The bell rang, signaling the end of class. Miss Lu left after assigning the homework. Kong Xiaobo turned around to look at Lin Yi, a little grumpy. I say, boss, you scared me. I thought you weren't coming today. What? Scared that Pinliang and the other two would come after you. They didn't come either, did they? Lin Yi smiled. It was true that Kong Xiaobo wouldn't be able to handle Pinliang's group alone. It was normal for him to be worried. Why didn't they come? They came this morning, and Zhang Naipeo still had a band-aid on his face. Kong Xiaobo said. But I don't know why, but they left after one round. Did they leave because you weren't here? Oh. They're here. This was out of Lin Yi's expectations, but whether they came or not didn't matter to Lin Yi. Let them be. That's true. They're no match for you, boss, but I'm afraid they'll find someone to help them. Kong Xiaobo said worriedly. Find someone? What do you mean? Lin Yi didn't understand Kong Xiaobo's words. If they can't beat them themselves, they'll find someone from the underworld to help them. Kong Xiaobo explained. You have to be careful, boss. They have connections with people from the underworld. Lin Yi frowned. As far as he was concerned, Pinliang was still a student, no matter how cocky he was. His way of dealing with people was limited to the school's way of doing things. He didn't expect Kong Xiaobo to be saying that these people had connections with people from the underworld, and that they'd need help if they couldn't beat them. Of course. One of the big four, Heartwarming, has a brother in the underworld. Kong Xiaobo said, last time when he fought with the boss of number 2 middle school, he asked his brother to come. Oh, his older brother was bare-chested, very tough, and had tattoos on his body. His underlings were all holding steel pipes and knives in their hands. Before the fight even started, the boss of Second High was already scared shitless, kneeling on the ground and begging for mercy. The more Lin Yi listened, the more he frowned. He didn't expect these students to be so arrogant. This was somewhat beyond his expectations. Was his lesson yesterday too light? Let's go to the bathroom. Let's talk on the way, Kong Xiaobo said to Lin Yi as he stood up. He and Lin Yi were sitting at the back of the class, so he waited until almost everyone had left before he stood up and walked out of the classroom. What's the content of our school's break? Lin Yi asked. Pinliang had called him to the washroom yesterday, so he didn't participate. You didn't go yesterday. Oh, I don't think I saw you yesterday. Kong Xiaobo said after some thought. It's a set of radio sports the school created. It's easy, you can learn it in one go. There's a PE teacher leading the way. Kong Xiaobo and Lin Yi quickly went to their seats after leaving the classroom. Kong Xiaobo was tall, so he stood at the back. Lin Yi wasn't short either, so he stood beside him. Pinliang finally arrived at the school gates, waiting for Heibao Bro. A bald, burly man jumped out of a white Nissan van. Behind him were 2 thugs of similar size. Master Zhong. This bald man was Heibao Bro, Pinliang nodded, turning to his underlings. Hurry up and greet Heibao Bro. Heibao Bro. Naipeo and Xiaofu greeted. Master Zhong, where's the guy? I'll take care of him right now so I can get back to the place. If the boss finds out I'm helping you fight, I'll be crippled. The boss Heibao Bro was talking about was naturally Pinliang's father. Hey Bao Bro knew that the boss didn't like Pinliang causing trouble, so he'd waited for a long time before coming over. He's inside, in the middle of the break, Pinliang said. Hey Bao Bro nodded, his cigarette dangling from his lips as he walked into the school. He was stopped by the old guard when he reached the gates. Hey, what are you doing here? This is a school, you can't just come in. Hey Bao Bro looked back at the old man in disdain, blowing a ring of smoke at the old man's face. Stay here if you don't want to die, you old bastard. The old man looked at Hey Bao Bro and shrunk his head. These gangsters weren't people an old man like him could mess with, so he pretended not to see anything and let them in. The school was in the middle of a break anyway, and the teachers would kick them out if they saw them. The whole school was in the middle of a break when 6 extremely discordant figures walked in from the school gates. 3 of them were all right, with Pinliang, Neipeo, and Xiaofu looking more like students, but Hey Bao Bro and the others behind them didn't look like good people at all. Hey Bao Bro walked in without a care in the world, not caring about the looks people gave him. Where? Hey Bao Bro asked. Over there, that's our class. Lin Yi must be coming out to break as well. Pinliang couldn't see clearly from afar, but he could tell that Lin Yi was coming out to break as well. Boss, it's Pinliang's group. They've brought help. Kong Xiaobo Bro spotted them right away because they were too obvious a target. Lin Yi had already spotted Pinliang's group before Kong Xiaobo could even speak. After all, they were in the middle of the school, and the whole school could see them. It wasn't long before Pinliang and Hey Bao Bro arrived at the front of the 12th grade's class 5, and Pinliang immediately spotted Lin Yi at the back of the class. Pinliang pointed at Lin Yi before turning to Hey Bao Bro. That's him, the one at the back of the line, the one in the uniform. Hey Bao Bro nodded and quickly walked over to Lin Yi. From afar, Lin Yi looked like a normal guy, tall and skinny. He didn't look like a fighter at all, and Hey Bao Bro was quite puzzled. Was a guy like that really worth fighting? Did he really need to do it himself? Other than his good looks, Hey Bao Bro didn't see any good points in Lin Yi. He just looked like a poor student no matter how he looked at him. He didn't look like he could fight at all. But since the young master had given him the order, Hey Bao Bro decided to end the fight as soon as possible so he could return to the nightclub. You're Lin Yi. Hey Bao Bro walked up to Lin Yi, biting on his cigarette as he looked at Lin Yi from the corner of his eyes. Yes. Lin Yi replied faintly. Do you know why I'm looking for you? Hey Bao Bro didn't look friendly at Lin Yi's arrogance. Chapter 53. It was a sensational fight. Part 2, Fuck. You're pretty fucking cocky, huh? Hey Bao Bro was infuriated by the tone Lin Yi was talking to him. He reached out to grab Lin Yi by the collar. Lin Yi reached out with his left hand and grabbed Hey Bao Bro's right hand, using his right hand to pinch Hey Bao's cheeks. With a flick of his hand, the cigarette in his mouth was sent flying into his mouth. Ouch! Hey Bao Bro howled as the cigarette went down his throat, burning a huge blister. Lin Yi's left hand pushed the panicking Hey Bao Bro to the side. Hey Bao Bro's mouth was wide open as he fanned himself with his hands, panting like a puppy with its tongue out to cool down. Zhou Ruoming lay in the school hospital for half a day, getting massaged and massaged before finally waking up. After putting a band-aid on his nose, he was helped out by his subordinates. Even then, his head was still ringing. What the fuck, which class is that kid from? Zhou Ruoming said hatefully. Find him. I'll beat him up so bad his mother won't recognize him. We don't know either. Zhou Ruoming's men didn't know which class Lin Yi was from either. There were too many normal students in school uniforms like this, and they wouldn't attract any attention at all. Fuck, it's got to be someone from our school, that's for sure. You guys go look for him, class by class after class. Beat him to death when you find him. Ruoming said fiercely. Don't worry, Ming bro. The underlings quickly responded. Although they were shocked by Lin Yi's skills earlier, there was no need to be afraid of him now that there were so many of them. The group walked out of the school hospital to find the students in the middle of the day. One of Zhou Ruoming's men saw Pin Liang and Heibao bro walking in, pointing at them. Ming bro, look. Isn't that Pin Liang's group? They don't look like students from our school. Oh. Zhou Ruoming raised his head and looked in the direction his man pointed. Pin Liang, Gao Xiaofu, and Zhang Naipeo walked into the school with their heads held high, followed by 3 bulky men. Ruoming recognized the shirtless man in the lead, the one with the tattoos all over his body. It was Heibao bro, one of the more famous people in the underworld. Ruoming's brother had drunk with him before, and Heibao bro had brought Ruoming along as well, so Ruoming had an impression of him. That's Heibao bro, he's very famous in the underworld. He's famous for his fighting prowess. I wonder why Pin Liang found him. Could it be that he wants to deal with our school students? One of Zhou Ruoming's men guessed. I don't know, but isn't that a bit overboard? Why would he need Heibao bro to deal with our school students? Zhou Ruoming shook his head. He didn't know what Pin Liang was planning. Zhou Ruoming and his men sat on a bench in the schoolyard, watching the situation unfold. Ruoming was very curious as to who it was that made Pin Liang go to such lengths to get so many people to deal with him. All of a sudden, Ruoming remembered seeing Pin Liang's group beaten black and blue last night. He'd asked Pin Liang what was wrong, but Pin Liang didn't say anything. Could it be that he'd been beaten up by someone, and was here to take revenge? Zhou Ruoming found it more and more plausible. He couldn't help but find it funny. Pin Liang was getting more and more screwed up, getting beaten up by his school students, and even asking people from the underworld to take care of it. What was even funnier was that this fellow actually said that they were playing around and fighting. Ming bro, why does that guy look so familiar? One of Zhou Ruoming's men pointed at Heibao bro, asterisk. Isn't that the guy who hit Ming bro with a basketball? Another man recognized Lin Yi immediately. Zhou Ruoming looked at him. It really was the guy who hit him with the basketball this morning. Ming bro, what do we do now? Zhou Ruoming's men were getting ready to take credit. Don't do anything. I think this guy pissed off Pin Liang. If that's the case, let Heibao bro take care of him. We're not in a rush. Zhou Ruoming said faintly. Zhou Ruoming's expression was calm, but his heart was in turmoil. Pin Liang wasn't as good of a fighter as Lin Yi, but his 2 underlings, Zhang Naipeo and Gao Xiaofu, were no pushovers either. Lin Yi wasn't an easy opponent to deal with, and the fact that he'd called for help from the underworld meant that Lin Yi wasn't a simple character. He'd thought it was a coincidence that he got hit with the basketball, but now it seemed like that wasn't the case. If Lin Yi didn't have a few tricks up his sleeve, there was no way he'd get Heibao bro involved. As a result, Zhou Ruoming wasn't in a hurry to cause trouble for Lin Yi. With Heibao bro around, he'd let Heibao bro take care of the kid first. What happened next, however, stunned Zhou Ruoming and the others. Before they could figure out what was going on, they saw Heibao bro howling and stomping on the ground, covering his mouth. Heibao bro had never been taken advantage of like this before. He'd fallen for a student's trick. His lungs were about to explode, and he ignored the pain in his throat as he swung his fist at Lin Yi with bloodshot eyes. Lin Yi could tell that Heibao bro was one of those men who trained in horizontal kung fu. Lin Yi wasn't afraid of him, though. Even old Lin would hit him with a metal rod, let alone his fists. Lin Yi, however, didn't want to show off too much in school. After all, getting hit by a fist like that and still being fine was bound to attract attention. As a result, Lin Yi dodged quickly, and Heibao Bro's fist missed. Lin Yi moved behind Heibao Bro in a flash, and Lin Yi raised his leg, aiming for Heibao Bro's butt. Of course, this was the same move Lin Yi had used on Pinliang before entering school. Lin Yi wanted to use this simple move to defeat the man in front of him, and so he acted more like a street thug, without any technique. Lin Yi didn't want to expose his kung fu in public, since old Lin had taught him to focus on assassination. Lin Yi didn't want too many people to know his background, and so he used brute force. Heibao Bro was a lot heavier than Pinliang, but Lin Yi's kick could even leave a hole in a car, let alone Heibao Bro. But Lin Yi didn't want to be accused of injuring and crippling someone in public. A lesson was enough. He didn't want Heibao Bro's pelvis to explode, crippling him for the rest of his life. Chapter 54. It was a sensational fight. In progress, Pinliang, Xiaofu, Neipeo, and Heibao Bro's lackeys were all stunned as Heibao Bro fell to the ground. Even more stunned were Zhou Ruoming's men. Zhou Ruoming couldn't believe what he was seeing. Heibao Bro was knocked out just like that. Others might not know how strong Heibao Bro was, but Zhou Ruoming knew that he was a fighter, one that even his own big brother wasn't a match for. Yet Lin Yi had taken down a tough guy like him with ease, without even breaking a sweat. Fuck, that worked. One of Zhou Ruoming's lackeys' eyes went wide. That kid's just lucky, isn't he? That lucky. Zhou Ruoming shook his head. He wasn't an idiot, and in fact, he was one of the more intelligent ones. He didn't think that Lin Yi had gotten lucky to beat Heibao Bro. Who was Heibao Bro? He was a guy who fought like he ate. He'd been on the battlefield all these years, there was no way he'd get knocked out by luck. He'd be dead a long time ago. Strength was strength, and Zhou Ruoming understood that the basketball he'd taken this morning wasn't for nothing. Heibao Bro was in a much worse state than he was, and from the looks of it, he wasn't afraid anymore. As expected, Lin Yi wasn't planning on taking Heibao Bro's life, but he wasn't going to let him go that easily. The kick didn't cause the pelvis to explode, but the bones were definitely fractured. Heibao Bro would be in the hospital for a month or so. Heibao Bro. Heibao Bro's lackeys weren't expecting Lin Yi to be this troublesome, taking down their boss in one go. Their eyes reddened as they charged towards Lin Yi. Lin Yi was getting impatient. Today was his first day in class, and he'd been planning on learning from it. But these guys were messing with his plans. Kill him for me. Brother Heibao struggled a few times, but he could no longer endure the pain in his lower body. He gritted his teeth, and a fierce glint flashed in his eyes. It had been many years since he had suffered such a loss. Now, he had suffered such a great loss at the hands of a student. This was something he could not tolerate. Today, it was either you die or I live. If he allowed Lin Yi to continue being so carefree, then he, Brother Black Panther, wouldn't be able to mingle anymore. Brother Heibao's hysteria finally enraged Lin Yi. He didn't want to do anything to Brother Heibao, but this guy didn't know what was good for him and even wanted to kill him. Lin Yi frowned and stepped on Brother Heibao's cheek. Crack! Brother Heibao screamed as his jaw shifted. Lin Yi's action scared the hell out of Brother Heibao's two underlings. These two were Brother Heibao's newly recruited subordinates. They hadn't participated in any fights before. Today, Brother Heibao brought them here to broaden their horizons and boost their courage. After all, beating up a defenseless student was the only way to cultivate the thrill of violence in these two men. But now, the situation was the exact opposite. The one who was beaten to a pulp was indeed Brother Heibao. This was a godlike existence in the eyes of these two underlings. Lin Yi's violence made the two men's legs go soft. So, being a gangster was not easy. there was always the danger of being crippled. It was not as glorious as they had imagined. Today, a student could beat Brother Heibao to a pulp. Tomorrow, he would meet someone even more ruthless. The two men didn't dare to think about it. At this moment, the two men had the intention to retreat. They were afraid that Lin Yi would vent his anger on them, so they subconsciously shrank back. Fuck your mother. No one will live today. Brother Heibao suddenly stretched out his right hand and pulled out a pitch-black counterfeit handgun from his pocket. He pointed it at Lin Yi. Counterfeit handguns were commonly known as shotguns. They were handguns that were not processed by a regular arsenal. They were processed by some small black workshops and sold in the black market. Their accuracy and safety were much worse than regular handguns. However, they were still very popular among the gangsters. After all, with such a gun on their body, they could take it out at a critical moment. Who would dare to act rashly without thinking? Brother Heibao had brought this handgun with him just in case. He never imagined that he would pull it out in this situation, a school, the most unlikely place to take it out. The conflict on Lin Yi's side had already attracted the school's attention, and a couple of the PE teachers were planning to kick Heibao Bro's group out of the school. After all, assaulting a student in broad daylight under the eyes of the teachers was a disrespect to the teachers. Especially the tall and burly PE teachers, they were eager to give it a try. What the hell is going on? Wang Jifeng, who had rushed to the scene, saw the teachers talking amongst themselves, and hurried over to ask. Mr. Wang, I think it's 12th grade class 5's Pinliang. He brought a few thugs to the school to wreak havoc. Zhang Xiaohua from the sports team said. He was in charge of 12th grade class 5, so he knew Pinliang. Zhang Xiaohua hated this rich second generation who didn't study and only knew how to fight and wreak havoc every day, but there was nothing he could do about it. Now that he was able to snitch on Pinliang in front of Jifeng, he felt great. Pinliang. Wang Jifeng frowned as he raised his head to look at the group of gangsters not far away. Just then, the situation changed. Heibao Bro was kicked to the ground by Lin Yi, and his head fell to the ground. Wang Jifeng, too, saw the person who kicked Heibao Bro. His mouth twitched. Why was this guy here? At first, Wang Jifeng thought that Lin Yi was quite polite. He might have been introduced by the shareholder Pingzhan, but he didn't look like a rich kid at all. He was wearing a clean school uniform, and he gave off a sunny vibe. But now, the truth was that he couldn't afford to offend Lin Yi. Putting aside the fact that he had Pingzhan backing him up, he'd be in big trouble if Lin Yi were to leak the information out of Pingzhan's mouth. You guys from the PE team, go take a look. Don't hurt our students. Wang Jifeng ordered the PE teachers, his words containing his own meaning. You can do whatever you want to the members of the society, but you have to protect the students of your own school. The PE teachers, of course, understood the meaning behind Wang Jifeng's words. Although Lin Yi had the upper hand now, they had to go over and continue to carry it forward. Chapter 55. It was a sensational fight. Part 2. Guns. They're armed. Zhang Xiaohua pointed at Heibao Bro in shock. After hearing Zhang Xiaohua's words, the other teachers also looked at Brother Heibao. Wasn't that right? Heibao Bro had a gun in his hand, and he was pointing it at Lin Yi. Don't go. Call the police. Wang Jifeng immediately felt that things were not looking good. This was no longer something that the school could control. He did not expect Brother Heibao and the others to dare pull out a gun in the school grounds. If things turned out to be a disaster, it was not something that a mere dean like him could handle. The principal would probably be implicated as well. What Lin Yi didn't expect was for Heibao Bro to pull out his gun in desperation, not only refusing to back down. Aren't you fucking cocky, you bastard? You cocky bastard. Look at what I've got in my hand. You've never seen this before, have you? Heibao Bro was hurting all over, but he was enjoying the feeling of looking down on others. Isn't it just a gun? Lin Yi said faintly as he looked at Heibao Bro. Heibao Bro's lungs were about to explode at Lin Yi's words. What did he mean, isn't it just a gun? Did he think that gun was a toy? Heibao Bro was pissed off. He knew that Lin Yi would be dead as soon as he moved his hand, but he liked seeing Lin Yi piss his pants in fear even more. That's right, it's a gun. Die, kid. Heibao Bro's eyes were filled with hatred and violence. Bang! The sound of a gunshot pierced through the air above the school grounds, and all the teachers and students were stunned. They hadn't expected someone to open fire in the school grounds, and the ones who were the most nervous were the six. Meng Yao gripped Yushu's hand tightly, her palms already soaked in sweat. Her heart skipped a beat the moment Heibao Bro pulled out his gun, as if she'd lost her bearings. In the bank, when Lin Yi stood up to face the muzzle, she didn't feel this way, but now, this feeling was unusually strong. She didn't want to admit it, but she couldn't help but pray that Lin Yi would be fine. Yushu, on the other hand, was panicking. Everything that was happening was completely out of her imagination. She didn't think that Zhong Pingliang would do something so extreme, sending people to kill Lin Yi. Pingliang didn't expect Heibao Bro to pull out a gun in school. At the end of the day, he was still a student, and all he wanted was to teach Lin Yi a lesson, not to kill Lin Yi. Heibao Bro had shot Lin Yi in front of everyone, and he couldn't get away with it. Kong Xiaobo looked at Lin Yi worriedly as well, but his legs didn't listen to him as he stared at the muzzle of the gun. He wanted to say something, but his legs didn't listen to him anymore. He couldn't take a step forward. Of course, Jifeng was the most worried. He never would have thought that Pingliang's men would be this cocky, using guns in school grounds, and even firing a gun. Ah! Heibao Bro let out a heart-wrenching wail. All the fingers on his right hand were gone, and only half of his palm was left. It was a ghastly sight. The gun had exploded. Of course, this wasn't a coincidence. No matter how bad a counterfeit gun was, it wouldn't explode that easily. But before Heibao Bro could fire, Lin Yi stepped on the gun's barrel, changing its shape. But it all happened in the blink of an eye, and even Heibao Bro didn't notice it. He didn't even look at the gun after it was stepped on by Lin Yi. He raised his hand and fired at Lin Yi. That wasn't the end. Lin Yi decided to go all the way and stomped on Heibao Bro's other hand and legs. The crisp sound of bones breaking accompanied Heibao Bro's cries, sending shivers down everyone's spines. Pingliang, on the other hand, was scared witless. He hid behind the basketball hoop with Xiaofu and Naipeo, not daring to come any closer. Zhou Ruoming, on the other hand, couldn't describe what he was feeling right now. The moment Heibao Bro pulled out his gun, he'd panicked a little. His brother was a gangster, but he'd never touched a real gun before. Ming Bro, he has a gun. Zhou Ruoming's lackey pointed at Heibao Bro with his mouth wide open. I have eyes, I can see it myself. Zhou Ruoming held his breath as he glared at his lackey. He didn't want to be interrupted at a critical moment like this. Zhou Ruoming felt like he was in a movie, and he didn't have the same uneasiness as Pingliang. Whether or not Lin Yi died, he could just be a bystander and watch the show. Gunshots, howls. But instead of seeing Lin Yi lying in a pool of blood, Zhou Ruoming saw Heibao Bro howling like a madman with only half a palm left. Fuck, no way. Ming Bro, I think the gun exploded. Zhou Ruoming's lackey's eyes were wide open. Don't mess with this kid anymore. Zhou Ruoming felt a chill run down his spine as he watched Lin Yi step on Heibao Bro. This kid's a fucking lunatic. Zhou Ruoming didn't want to say that in front of his lackey, but he had to. He didn't want his lackey to mess with this violent maniac, and that would only bring more trouble to himself. Heartwarming knew his own limitations. Even Hey Bao Bro wasn't a match for Lin Yi, and he'd only end up as an appetizer. But, to cover up his embarrassment, Heartwarming added, "This kid's a fucking lunatic." What he was trying to say was that Lin Yi was a lunatic, and normal people couldn't compare to a lunatic. That way, he could save his face. In actuality, Heartwarming didn't even need to explain to his lackeys. His lackeys were already scared out of their wits. They didn't have the guts to mess with someone who could beat up a gangster like Hey Bao Bro. This guy's only good at acting. Meng Yao let out a breath of relief when she saw that Lin Yi was fine, but she still put on a cold face. She wanted to say that he was acting, but didn't think it was a proper word. The words came out as acting. "I told you, this shield bro's a badass." Yushu let out a breath of relief as well, her smile returning to her face as she said to Meng Yao. Chapter 56. It was self-defense. Ouch! Hey Bao Bro's eyes bulged out of their sockets. Kong Xiaobo didn't seem to be satisfied with that, as he gave him another kick. This time, Hey Bao Bro fainted. Lin Yi shook his head at Kong Xiaobo. That was one of the more vulnerable parts of the human body, and continuous blows could be fatal. Lin Yi might have looked cruel, but he hadn't hit Hey Bao Bro anywhere near fatal. Lin Yi didn't want this guy he'd just met at school to end up in jail for murder, after all. Stop, he won't be able to take it anymore. Ah! Kong Xiaobo woke up from his hot-bloodedness after hearing Lin Yi's words. He looked at the unconscious Hey Bao Bro in disbelief. Xiaobo's personality had always leaned towards the cowardly side, and he'd never really gotten into a fight since high school, but in his heart, he was looking forward to a good fight. After all, it was a shame that he'd never gotten into a fight before as a man. But today, he'd done it. The excitement he'd felt just now was too much for him to contain. An ear-piercing siren sounded. Several police cars drove into the first high school with their lights flashing and sirens blaring. Ling Shan was quite troubled. Why did so many things happen in Songshan when Captain Yang wasn't home? First the bank robbery, and now a gun-wielding Communist Party member in a school. Ling Shan didn't dare be negligent when she heard that it was a gun-wielding Communist Party member. This was a major criminal case. Ling Shan ordered her fully armed men to get ready as soon as they entered the school, and they rushed to the scene of the crime. "People in front, listen up. You've been surrounded. Please put down your weapons and fight for leniency." The police officer started yelling under Ling Shan's orders. Lin Yi frowned. Why were the police here? Who'd called the cops? Lin Yi didn't want to make things too big. Subconsciously, Lin Yi didn't want to see that chick Song again. After yesterday's embarrassing incident, anyone would be too embarrassed to see her again. Lin Yi raised his head helplessly to see Ling Shan looking at him with a worried face. Lin Yi sighed and smiled at Ling Shan. Since he couldn't hide, he might as well be honest with her. Seeing Lin Yi here, Ling Shan's heart skipped a beat. Her face reddened, and her expression darkened. She didn't think that the culprit would be Lin Yi. She looked at the person lying on the ground at his feet, not knowing if he was dead or alive, and the fearful gazes of the people around him. Ling Shan subconsciously thought that Lin Yi was the culprit. Don't move. Hands up. Ling Shan pulled out her gun and pointed it at Lin Yi. Lin Yi was surprised to see Ling Shan pointing a gun at him. Was this girl trying to take revenge on him? After some hesitation, Lin Yi raised his hand. He was confident that he'd be able to dodge Ling Shan's gun and subdue her at this distance, but wasn't there a bunch of police officers with guns nearby? If they thought that he was trying to attack the police, it'd be troublesome. Take them away. Ling Shan pointed at Lin Yi and the others. Police auntie, Lin Yi was defending himself. These are the people looking for trouble. Kong Xiaobo panicked when he saw that the police were going to take Lin Yi away. He didn't care about the black muzzles anymore. He wanted to run up and explain. Ling Shan wasn't expecting someone to speak up for Lin Yi in a situation like this, but the word self-defense reminded her of yesterday's scene. That was a profound language. Two completely different words, but the same pronunciation. Ling Shan's eyes lit up. And so, Ling Shan's face turned cold again. We'll investigate the real situation. Take them away. Lin Yi smiled gratefully at Kong Xiaobo. He said softly, this girl has a grudge against me. She's trying to mess with me. It's fine. Kong Xiaobo paused. He didn't think that Lin Yi would have a grudge against Ling Shan. He was about to say something when Ling Shan walked over herself. Her eyes were wide and angry. Evidently, she'd heard what Lin Yi said. Ling Shan hated people who used their position for personal gain. She was furious when she heard Lin Yi say that she was using her position to mess with him. If she wanted to mess with him, would she have let him go yesterday? At the thought, a wave of anger rose up in her, and Ling Shan was starting to lose her mind. She grabbed Lin Yi's shoulder and said coldly, "What are you mumbling about? Are you colluding with me? We'll talk when we get to the police station." Lin Yi curled his lips at Kong Xiaobo. "See, it's just like I said. This girl is obviously here for me." Ling Shan really wanted to kick Lin Yi's ass, but she held it in. She didn't want to lose her job because of Lin Yi. At that moment, Wang Jifeng rushed over, sweating profusely. The principal, Ding Binggong, came with him. He was in his office planning the school's bright future. This year, the board of directors had allocated a large sum of money to the school. Ding Binggong planned to use this money to upgrade the school's facilities and apply for the National Model High School selection. Ding Binggong was quite capable. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to become the principal of a school like this. The board of directors valued ability, and everything else was secondary. If the school didn't develop, then he'd step down. As a result, the school's rapid development couldn't be separated from Ding Binggong's efforts. The sound of an explosion passed through the window. Ding Binggong couldn't help but frown. Didn't he say it many times? Setting off firecrackers in school was forbidden. Ding Binggong sighed. The rich kids in school had always been a thorn in his side. It was fine if they didn't study, but if they didn't disturb others, then Ding Binggong would thank the heavens and earth. But a while ago, there was an incident of students setting off firecrackers in school. It pissed Ding Binggong off, and he swore that he'd expel these delinquent students for ignoring school rules. But after some investigation, Ding Binggong couldn't help but feel discouraged. The one who set off the firecrackers was 12th grade class 5's Pin Liang, and the one who egged him on was his classmate, Yu Shu. If Pin Liang's background wasn't enough to shake Ding Binggong's resolve, then Yu Shu. This miss. Ding Binggong really didn't dare do anything to her. Chapter 57. Chapter 57, Yushu's glorious history. She'd been bored out of her mind, so she told Pin Liang that Meng Yao wanted to hear the firecrackers go off. Pin Liang had brought Xiaofu and Naipeo to the fireworks market, returning with a couple of workers half an hour later with a 5 million sounding firecracker. And so, the originally quiet firecracker field exploded into a cacophony of explosions. Classes couldn't be held at school, and the students couldn't hear what the teachers were saying. They were all gathered around the windows, looking at Pin Liang and the others standing not far from the firecrackers with a smug look on their faces. They were laughing, that's 5 million firecrackers. The firecrackers continued to go off for the entire morning, and the school's teachers didn't dare to get close due to the power of the great god cannon. Left with no other choice, Ding Bing-gong could only ask for help from the fire department. The fire department drove a fire truck and used high-pressure water cannons to extinguish the ringing great god cannon. Only then did the farce end. The negative impact of the incident wasn't too big, since the school hadn't suffered any losses, and no students had been hurt. Ding Bing-gong quickly covered it up, and the board of directors didn't pay much attention to it. But you can't do this again and again, can you? Ding Bing-gong was truly pissed off this time. He stood up and walked to the window, pulling the blinds open to look at the firecracker field. What he saw shocked him. It wasn't that easy to notice a firecracker in a big firecracker field, but no one was doing it anymore. The students had spread out in a circle, and Ding Bing-gong saw a couple of burly gangsters in the center of the circle, as well as Pingliang's group and a student in a school uniform. Ding Bing-gong's face twitched, and he almost lost his grip on the windowsill and fell. Those weren't firecrackers. They were gunshots. Ding Bing-gong's heart almost jumped out of his chest when he saw what Heibao Bro was holding. He only breathed a sigh of relief after making sure that the injured person wasn't a student. He didn't have time to think about it anymore as he picked up his phone and ran out of the office, a terrorist armed with a gun in a school. If this matter were to get out of hand, he definitely wouldn't be able to take responsibility for it. Forget about applying for the exemplary high school, even he, Ding Bing-gong, would have to pack up and leave. Fortunately, there didn't seem to be any casualties, so Ding Bing-gong was a little relieved. When he went downstairs, he ran into Wang Jifeng, who was rushing up to him. "Headmaster, bad news. Something big has happened. I've seen it. What's the situation now?" Ding Bing-gong waved his hand, stopping Jifeng from speaking any more nonsense and directly asking him to explain the situation. "It seems like Pingliang hired some gangsters to cause trouble for a student named Lin Yi, but Lin Yi beat them up. He's fine." Wang Jifeng introduced concisely. Lin Yi. The name sounded familiar to Bing-gong. "It's the student that Director Chu recommended," Wang Jifeng reminded. "Ah, it's him." Ding Bing-gong's heart skipped a beat. Thank goodness Lin Yi was fine, otherwise the consequences would have been unimaginable. Ding Bing-gong calmed down after hearing Jifeng's explanation. Gangsters deserved to be beaten to death, as long as the student was fine. The two quickly made their way to the police station, only to see Ling Shan escorting Lin Yi into a police cruiser. Someone of Ding Bing-gong's position, of course, recognized Ling Shan. He walked up to her with a smile. "Captain Song, why are you taking my student away?" Ding Bing-gong wasn't afraid of Ling Shan, but if Lin Yi was taken away, it'd affect the school greatly. That was why he was smiling. Especially since Lin Yi was someone Pengzhan had recommended. Bing-gong had to be even more cautious. "Headmaster Ding, he's suspected of being involved in a violent fight. We're taking him back to assist in the investigation," Ling Shan said coldly. Bing-gong's face darkened at Ling Shan's lack of respect. "Captain Song, I'm quite close with your captain. Should I give him a call?" "Sure, but the captain's on a plane right now. He probably won't be able to pick up your call," Ling Shan said as she pushed Lin Yi into the police cruiser. Ding Bing-gong was infuriated. He was a man of status in Songshan, and he'd interacted with many big leaders, let alone Ling Shan. Which family didn't have a child in school? His school, especially, was a private one. It wasn't managed by the city, and answered directly to the board of directors. There were all sorts of people who needed Bing-gong's help, but this Ling Shan didn't give him any face at all. Bing-gong dialed Huaijuan's number straight away, but all he got was the cold tone of the phone being turned off. It seemed that Ling Shan hadn't lied to him. Huaijuan would only turn off his phone if he had no other choice, otherwise his phone would be open 24 hours a day. Huaijun was on the plane back to Songshan early in the morning. He'd been invited by a friend in the police force to help solve a case, but he hadn't expected a bank robbery to happen in Songshan a day after he'd left. He had no choice but to book a morning ticket and rush back to Songshan without stopping. Heibao Bro's 2 underlings were brought into the police cruiser as well. Pin Liang and the others, naturally, escaped, while Heibao Bro was sent to the hospital. Lin Yi, you're quite something, aren't you? You just got shot yesterday, and you're in a gunfight today. Ling Shan said, annoyed at the nonchalant look on Lin Yi's face. Most people would be dejected when they were brought into a police cruiser, but this Lin Yi didn't seem to care at all. Lin Yi rolled his eyes as he looked at Ling Shan before turning his eyes elsewhere. He had to admit that she was very pretty, especially when she was in uniform. It was enough to make Lin Yi's imagination run wild. What's with that attitude? I'm asking you a question. Ling Shan said, getting even angrier at the fact that Lin Yi wasn't paying attention to her. People used to say that women with big boobs were brainless, but I didn't believe them. But now, I believe you. Lin Yi raised his head, his eyes scanning Ling Shan's body a few times. What do you mean? Ling Shan said, uncomfortable under Lin Yi's gaze. Who are you calling brainless? Who knows? Lin Yi curled his lips. Anyone with a bit of intelligence would be able to tell that it was those people who came to the school to cause trouble, and I was just acting out of self-defense. You, on the other hand, arrested me. Of course, Ling Shan knew what Lin Yi was talking about. But, no matter what, Lin Yi had heavily injured that Heibao Bro, and it was unknown whether he was still alive or not. It wasn't wrong of her to ask Lin Yi for an investigation. Chapter 58. It's him. We'll only know what you did after the investigation. What I see right now is that you beat up that Heibao Bro, and he's in the hospital, but you're fine. Ling Shan humphed coldly. So whether it was self-defense or intentional injury, we'll only know after the investigation. Whatever you want. Lin Yi knew that Ling Shan didn't like him, and wanted to use her identity as a police officer to lecture him. Both of them knew what kind of person Heibao Bro was, and Ling Shan knew that this was most likely because of what happened yesterday. Ling Shan hadn't thought that she'd be doing something like this one day, but thinking about it, it wasn't really. At the very least, it was a fact that Lin Yi had injured Heibao Bro, and it wasn't wrong for her to lecture him. The police car was the type that had a front and rear compartment, and only Lin Yi and Ling Shan were in the back. The driver couldn't hear their conversation from the front, and that was why Lin Yi was more open with his words, even daring to say things like big boobs and no brains. Lin Yi turned his head away and ignored her, and Ling Shan felt bored as well. Fortunately, her phone rang at that moment, and Ling Shan picked it up. Song, it's Yang Huaijun. Huaijun's voice sounded from the other side. Captain Yang, you're back in Songshan. Ling Shan let out a sigh of relief when she received Huaijun's call. She hadn't found a single clue on the bank robbery case after an entire night of interrogations, and her heart was burning with anxiety. Now that Huaijun was back, she could finally relax. Yeah, I just got back. I'm on my way back to the station. Are you alright? Huaijun asked. Heibao Bro, a member of the Communist Party, went to Songshan's first school with a gun. I just went to deal with it. Ling Shan reported honestly. What? Heibao Bro went to school with a gun. Huaijun jumped in fright at the news, not expecting so many things to happen in Songshan in just a day. Not much, but Heibao Bro was heavily injured by a student, and he's in the hospital. I've brought the student back to the police station for further investigation. Ling Shan couldn't help but glare at Lin Yi. Alright, we'll talk about it when I get back. Huaijun said with a sigh of relief. The police car roared all the way to the Songshan police station, and Ling Shan personally escorted Lin Yi out of the car. The other two underlings of Heibao Bro were escorted out by other officers. At the same time, another police car drove into the yard, and Ling Shan's eyes lit up when she saw the license plate. It was Captain Yang Huaijuan's car. As expected, a tall, tan man jumped out of the car and walked quickly towards the police office. It was Yang Huaijuan, the captain of the city's criminal investigation team. Lin Yi saw Huaijuan at the same time Ling Shan saw him. Why was it him? Lin Yi's pupils shrunk, and he quickly lowered his head. Captain Yang. Ling Shan said happily as she waved at Huaijuan. Lin Yi really wanted to give this Ling Shan a kick. Why didn't you bring me to the interrogation room when you got to the police station? Why did you greet him? He had no choice but to turn his head to the side so that Huaijuan wouldn't notice him. I didn't think we'd be right behind each other. Huaijuan walked over and nodded to Ling Shan with a smile before turning to Lin Yi. This is the student who hurt Heibao Bro. That's him. Ling Shan nodded as she looked at Lin Yi, only to see Lin Yi's head drooping down obediently. She couldn't take it anymore. What was the meaning of this? You were acting all high and mighty in the police car, but now that you're in the police station and Captain Yang, you're behaving like a good boy. Aren't you looking down on people? Ling Shan humphed coldly at the thought. Lin Yi, what are you doing? Raise your head and let Captain Yang look at you. Song, you don't seem to be in a good mood. He's just a student, have a better attitude. Huaijuan frowned. He saw that Lin Yi was wearing a school uniform, and instinctively didn't think that Lin Yi was a bad guy. He patted Lin Yi's shoulder. Kid, what's going on? Tell your big bro. Lin Yi lowered his head, speechless. Who's big bro? But Lin Yi was afraid that Huaijuan wouldn't recognize him, and so he lowered his head even more, not bothering to talk to him at all. Captain Yang, I'm talking to you. Ling Shan wanted to smack Lin Yi's head when he started putting on airs again. Oh. It's nothing. Lin Yi said in a muffled voice. Nothing. Huaijuan frowned. Why didn't this kid know what was good for him? He'd asked him that because he was a student, and he wanted to keep a low profile. He didn't want to leave a mark on his file, but he didn't expect Lin Yi to be so cold and indifferent. They were looking for trouble, and I beat them up. Lin Yi cursed. You weren't this nosy in the past, were you? What was wrong with you today? Huaijuan didn't move for a long while after Lin Yi said that, but Lin Yi felt a burning gaze on him. It made Lin Yi uncomfortable. Can you lift your head? Huaijuan found the words funny. There were too many similar people in this world. This person's voice sounded like that person's, but he was still a student. I'm not a girl, stop looking. Lin Yi sighed inwardly. Huaijuan had found out something after all, but he couldn't be blamed. There was no way he could hide from Huaijuan, who was known for his sensitivity. Ling Shan, on the other hand, didn't know what was going on. Lin Yi was ignoring Huaijuan, but why was the captain's attitude being so nice to him? Ling Shan was just about to lift Lin Yi's head when Huaijuan lowered his body and looked up at Lin Yi's face. That's right. There's no mistaking it. It's him. Huaijuan was 90% sure that the person in front of him was the one he'd been looking for all this time. He didn't know why he'd become a student all of a sudden, but Huaijuan believed his eyes. Arno. Huaijuan couldn't hold back the excitement in his heart. What? Lin Yi cursed inwardly, but pretended to be suspicious. Chapter 59. Delusional disorder. But Huaijuan didn't give up. What kind of person was this guy? It'd be a waste of Huaijuan treating him like a god if he could see through him with such a simple test. I say, Miss Song, it's fine if you're retarded, but why's your captain acting like this too? Lin Yi didn't bother dodging anymore since Huijuan had seen his face. He raised his head. Man, looks like you guys have a lot of pressure at work. You should get some therapy to relieve yourself. Why won't you admit it? Huijuan, on the other hand, wasn't paying attention to the conversation at all. He grabbed Huijuan's shoulders and started shaking him back and forth. I'm a hound. Don't you recognize me? Ling Shan was just about to argue with Lin Yi when she heard Huijuan call himself a hound. Her eyes went wide. What the hell was going on? Was the captain really starting to talk nonsense because of the pressure? Man, look at that, Song girl, he's seriously delusional, imagining himself as an animal. Lin Yi shook his head. Plus, he thinks I'm an animal when he sees me. That's right, he thinks I'm an animal. Ling Shan's face darkened. Captain Yang was always the calm and collected person. What was wrong with him today? He wasn't sure before, but now he was 100% certain that the person in front of him was the one he was looking for. They'd been comrades through thick and thin during those difficult times. There was no way Huijuan would mistake someone else for someone else. Especially Lin Yi's tone of voice and the way he was talking, it made Huijuan even more certain that the person in front of him was him. A sudden thought popped into Huijuan's mind. Could it be that he was on a special mission and couldn't reveal his identity? Yes. That was very possible. Thinking back to the level of the mission they were on, Lin Yi's actions made sense. Song, leave him to me. I'll handle this case myself. Huijuan said as he grabbed onto Lin Yi's arm, afraid that he'd run away. All right then. Ling Shan didn't understand why Huijuan was so concerned about Lin Yi's situation, and why he was doing all these weird things, but she still obeyed his orders out of habit. Huijuan didn't have time to chat with Ling Shan either. He grabbed Lin Yi's hand and ran towards the office building. Lin Yi smiled bitterly as he followed behind Huijuan. It seemed like they wouldn't be able to escape this. Bang! Huijuan shut the door and locked it from the inside, although Huijuan understood that the man would be able to get out even if he was thrown into prison. Lin Yi, on the other hand, was quite carefree as he sat on the sofa in Huijuan's office. Captain Yang, right? What are you trying to do? You need to know that we're locked in an office in broad daylight. If word gets out. Man. I'm still a high school student. Alright, there's no one else here, and my office is soundproof enough. You know that my nickname is Hound, and that means that my detection and anti-detection abilities are very strong. No one's going to be able to put a bug in here without me noticing. Huijuan turned back to Lin Yi, his eyes fixed on Lin Yi as he spoke word by word. No way, right? What are you trying to do with me? Lin Yi said innocently, his eyes wide open. Stop pretending, Arno. You know what I'm talking about. Huijuan said seriously. I'm sorry, you've got the wrong person. I'm not Arno, and I don't know what you're talking about. Lin Yi said with a shrug. I'm not mistaken. Huijuan's face lit up as he jumped up to Lin Yi and shook Lin Yi's shoulder. Eagle, are you running away from something? Why won't you admit who you are? Lin Yi was indifferent. Was he really running away from something? Those years of war, that absolute trust between comrades. That beautiful face, that heartbroken gaze. It made Lin Yi's heart skip a beat. Ning's been looking for you all these years. Huijuan's face was twisted. Lin Yi's denial was causing his emotions to change as well. Ning. Who's that? Lin Yi felt as if his heart was being pierced by a needle, but on the surface, he maintained a calm expression. You dash. Huijuan's eyes were bloodshot as he glared at Lin Yi. You're trying to run away, aren't you? You're going to ruin her life. Huijuan clutched at his chest abruptly as beads of sweat rolled down his forehead like rainwater. His face was white and twisted, and his body was trembling uncontrollably. "What's wrong?" Lin Yi was startled. Yes, he could deny everything, but Lin Yi couldn't just turn a blind eye to his former comrade, someone he'd put his life in. Huijuan pulled out a bottle of medicine from his pocket with difficulty, opening it with trembling hands and popping a pill into his mouth. His face relaxed a little after a while, but he was still panting heavily. Lin Yi glanced at the label on the bottle. It was an imported sedative and painkiller. His face changed instantly. "Why are you taking this medicine?" Lin Yi was well aware of Huijuan's physique. He was as strong as a bull, and it was impossible for him to have any hidden illnesses, but now, you're finally admitting it. Huijuan's face was still pale, but there was a trace of a smile on his lips. "Let's not talk about that for now. What's wrong with your body?" Lin Yi asked as he helped Huijuan onto the sofa, no longer bothering to deny it. "I'm not that fragile, I'm fine," Huijuan said with a grin on his face. It was obvious that he was happy. "Eagle, I know I'm not mistaking you for someone else. You've grown taller these past 2 years, and the sharpness in your eyes has lessened, but I still recognize you." "Fine, I'll admit it. Tell me what's wrong with you first. Also, why'd you retire? Isn't the organization you're with a lifetime membership?" Lin Yi couldn't imagine what had happened to Huijuan in the past 2 years. Huijuan looked strong on the outside, but Lin Yi could sense a trace of sickness on his face. Old Lin was a famed miracle doctor in the village, and so Lin Yi's medical skills had been passed down to him as well. Chapter 60. Don't call me Eagle. Injured. How'd you get injured? Lin Yi asked. I got a new mission after we came back from North Africa, and it was to track down an international drug trafficker. I didn't expect them to have a master in their midst, and I got injured. Huijuan smiled bitterly at this point. I guess I was lucky, though. They thought I was dead when they saw me fall down, but Armadillo and the others, Armadillo. What's wrong with him? Lin Yi's heart skipped a beat. Armadillo sacrificed himself. Huijuan said, a little dejected. What? Lin Yi's face turned into a terrifying grim. Armadillo, that little guy who always had that bright smile on his face. Who would have thought that a comrade who'd fought alongside him 2 years ago would die just like that? Huijuan could empathize with Lin Yi's emotion. Armadillo was Lin Yi's comrade, and Huijuan's comrade as well. Huijuan couldn't help but cry when he heard the news of Armadillo's death. Maybe he's still alive, Huijuan said, worried that Lin Yi would be sad. You didn't find his body. A glimmer of hope flashed across Lin Yi's eyes. Armadillo was a smart fella, and it was possible that he could have escaped death. His body was thrown into the furnace by the drug dealers. I didn't know about it until later. Huijuan sighed. I was in so much pain when I woke up that I couldn't care less about anything else. I found a place to hide, and lost consciousness after that, until someone rescued me. Fuck his ancestors. Lin Yi slammed his fist on the coffee table in front of him, and Lin Yi smashed it into a pile of sawdust. Huijuan clicked his tongue inwardly. As expected of an eagle, he was still as fierce as ever. Huijuan knew that he wouldn't be able to do something like that himself. I'm sorry, I was too heavily injured, and I couldn't check on my comrades. Huijuan said, guilt filling his heart every time he thought about it. It's not your fault. Lin Yi shook his head. He knew that Huijuan would only be courting death if he went up there. Are your injuries serious? Full of injuries. I retired after half a year of recuperation. Huijuan sighed. Western medicine calls it sequela, Eastern medicine calls it broken meridians. You can't be agitated, and you can't engage in high-intensity work for a long period of time. Moreover, you have to use medication to maintain it. Lin Yi put the pangolin thing to the back of his mind and turned to Huaijuan. Give me your hand. What are you doing? Huaijuan asked curiously, but extended his hand anyway. Let me feel your pulse. Lin Yi said as he placed his hand on Huaijuan's wrist, his expression solemn. You can feel my pulse. No way, Ing, I thought you were good at killing, but you know how to save people. Huaijuan stared at Lin Yi, a little surprised. This was his comrade in arms in a storm of bullets. There's a lot you don't know. Lin Yi said with a smile. What, you don't trust me? Don't trust me? Huaijuan's eyes widened. Of course I trust you. I could have left my back to you on the battlefield. Don't make it sound so mushy. Lin Yi said jokingly, but his heart was getting heavier and heavier. Huaijuan's pulse was bad, and he could feel that his body had recovered, but his internal injuries were still very serious. Many of his organs weren't fully healed yet, and were even showing signs of weakening. How is it? My body's alright, right? Huaijuan asked curiously, seeing that Lin Yi had really felt his pulse. You only use painkillers to solve your problems. Lin Yi didn't answer the question. Yeah, what's wrong with it? Huaijuan asked. Then why aren't you dead yet? Lin Yi said with a frown. Huaijuan was speechless. What the fuck, are you cursing me? It's not that I'm cursing you, but you're in a really bad situation right now. The injuries from last time haven't healed at all, and they're getting worse. I don't know how you've been using painkillers for so long, but someone else would have died from the pain a long time ago. Lin Yi said with a serious expression on his face. He wasn't trying to scare Huaijuan, he was just stating a fact. There was no need to lie to someone like Huaijuan. He'd been on the battlefield long ago, and he'd long since given up on life and death. Even if Lin Yi were to tell him that he was going to die tomorrow, Huaijuan wouldn't have much of a reaction. An old Eastern doctor said the same thing, saying that I wouldn't be able to live past 6 months. Look at me, aren't I? As expected, Huaijuan wasn't affected by Lin Yi's words at all. He was stretching his arms and legs in a relaxed manner. He's right, half a year is too much for you. Lin Yi nodded. Eagle, can you stop mocking me? Do I look like someone who's about to die? Huaijuan glared at Lin Yi, a little displeased. My name's Lin Yi, don't call me Eagle. Lin Yi said as he looked at Huaijuan. That's why I said it's a miracle that you're still alive, and it might have something to do with your strong willpower. What's wrong with that? Huaijuan continued. You can still use painkillers to alleviate the pain, but it'll only get worse in the future. Lin Yi said. You might have noticed it by now, but the frequency and dosage of the painkillers has increased. You really know medicine? Huaijuan asked, surprised that Lin Yi had hit the nail on the head. What do you think? Lin Yi said as he let go of Huaijuan's hand. He had a rough idea of what was going on. Huaijuan's situation was very complicated. There was a saying that all medicines had some side effects, and every herb would damage the body's organs to a certain degree. In other words, if Lin Yi were to prescribe a medicine for the heart, it'd affect Huaijuan's spleen or liver, but if he were to prescribe a medicine for the liver, it'd affect his heart or kidney. All in all, there'd be side effects to the other organs no matter which part he treated. It'd be better if he didn't treat it, and it'd only speed up his death. Huaijuan couldn't help but ask when he saw Lin Yi deep in thought. What's wrong? What are you thinking about? Chapter 61. A girl he'll never forget. Holy shit. Huaijuan slapped his thigh as he looked at Lin Yi. Not bad, not bad. You're the captain of the hounds after all. The army invited the most famous Eastern medicine specialist in the country, Elder Chinchueji, to see me after I got injured. He said the same thing after looking at me. Chinchueji. Lin Yi felt like he'd heard the name before, but couldn't remember where he'd heard it from. Yeah, he was the one who said I wouldn't live past 6 months. Huaijuan said with a smile. He told me not to treat it if I wanted to die slower. Maybe I'd live a couple more days with painkillers. What kind of bullshit is that? Lin Yi couldn't help but frown. I'll go back and think about it. I'll come up with a plan as soon as I can, but I can write you a prescription first. It'll be better than Western painkillers, and the side effects won't be as bad. With that, Lin Yi walked over to Huaijuan's desk and grabbed a pen and paper. He quickly wrote down a prescription and handed it to Huaijuan. You'd better get this prescription yourself, and don't let anyone else know about it. Also, I don't want anyone else to know about my past, so don't bring it up again. It really works. Eagle, you've given me such a big surprise. Huaijuan said as he took the prescription from Lin Yi's hands. He stared blankly at the dense list of Eastern medicine names on it. It couldn't have been written randomly. Most people wouldn't even be able to write down the names of the Eastern medicine. I told you, don't call me Eagle. I'm Lin Yi. Lin Yi corrected. Alright, Lin Yi. Huaijuan nodded as he put the prescription away carefully. It was a prescription from his former captain and comrade, and Huaijuan trusted it unconditionally. He'd die if he didn't take it, and who knew how long he'd be able to live for. You're really a god, no wonder Xiaoning is so tiny. Hearing this name, the smile on Lin Yi's face suddenly froze. After a long time, he raised his head and said, She still remembers me. She asked about you the last time I saw her. Huaijuan said with a nod. Perhaps I'm just casually asking. Lin Yi bitterly smiled. The two of them were people from two different worlds and it was impossible for them to be intertwined. Even if they were to be intertwined, they were destined to be separated. There was no such thing as equality between people. Lin Yi understood this very well. At least for now, Lin Yi didn't have the ability to give her a future. Are you trying to shirk your responsibility? Huaijuan's expression was agitated as he glared at Lin Yi. Huaijuan's weird reaction surprised Lin Yi, but Lin Yi seemed to understand something in an instant. You, like her? Huaijuan fell silent under Lin Yi's question. After a while, he finally spoke up. There wasn't a single person in the suicide squad who didn't have feelings for her, but this was also an acknowledgement of his thoughts. She's quite a good match for you. Lin Yi knew about Huaijuan's parentage. They were a good match, weren't they? What do you mean? Huaijuan jumped up as if his foot had been stepped on. He pointed at Lin Yi with a dark expression. What kind of person do you think I am? You can't bully a friend's wife. I, Hound, wouldn't do something like that no matter how much of an asshole I am. She's not my wife. Lin Yi said faintly with a shake of his head. Alright, I'm leaving. I'll leave Lingshan's matter to you. I'm sure it won't be a problem. With that, Lin Yi stood up and walked towards the door. I really want to kill you. Huaijuan said as he aimed a punch at Lin Yi's back. Lin Yi didn't even turn his head as he grabbed his arm. As long as you can do it. Huaijuan knew that the gap between him and Lin Yi wasn't small at all, and he let go of Huaijuan's arm dispiritedly. Lin Yi, on the other hand, let go of Huaijuan's arm and walked out of the office. Lin Yi's expression didn't change much, but his thoughts couldn't help but wander back to the days of war. The girl he met and parted with in his life. These 2 years, Lin Yi would often wake up from his training at night, sweating profusely every time. This was something that Lin Yi hadn't experienced ever since he started practicing the art of dragon mastery. But those melancholy eyes were like a demon in his heart, filling up Lin Yi's nights. Lin Yi couldn't help but wake up from his training every time he saw that sad and resentful gaze. It was a never-ending nightmare. Had he really forgotten about her? Obviously not. She was a girl that any man would never be able to forget for the rest of their lives. But Lin Yi knew very well that her radiance didn't belong to him. If the 17-year-old Lin Yi still had a trace of arrogance in him, the current Lin Yi understood the cruelty of reality. Going to her would only bring trouble to her and the people around her. They weren't of the same social class, and nobody hitting on a princess was bullshit. From the moment Lin Yi was taken away by the police, Chief Chen's phone never stopped ringing. First, it was the headmaster of first school, Ding Bingong. Chief Chen was very careful with Ding Bingong's calls, and promised him that he'd investigate the matter thoroughly. However, the people who called later were getting more and more important. First, it was Peng Zhan's Uncle Fu, and now, it was Peng Zhan himself. Chief Chen had no choice but to call Ling Shan, urging her to solve the case as soon as possible. She had to be fair and just, and he couldn't let people talk behind his back. But the news he got from Ling Shan was that Huaijuan had just come back and taken Lin Yi away. Chief Chen had no choice but to call Huaijuan again. What? He's released already? Chief Chen was startled. Wasn't this Huaijuan a little too fast? Yeah, it was a gang that came to the school to wreak havoc, and it had nothing to do with Lin Yi. I told him to go back after I understood the situation. Huaijuan reported in his usual professional tone. As long as you're fine. Chief Chen sighed in relief. He could answer to Bingong and Peng Zhan now. Chapter 62. A secret talk. Ling Shan blinked oddly at the calm and collected Huaijuan. She couldn't hold it in any longer. Captain Yang, do you know Lin Yi? He looks like a friend of mine. I got too excited and made a mistake. Huaijuan said with a smile. I hope you didn't get scared. Since Lin Yi didn't want him to reveal his identity, Huaijuan couldn't say too much. No. Ling Shan shook her head. What kind of friend could make Captain Yang lose his composure like that? But she didn't ask. Lin Yi was just about to flag down a taxi when Faubert's Bentley stopped beside him. Faubert poked his head out. Get in, Mr. Lin. Lin Yi nodded, not bothering with pleasantries as he walked over and opened the door to the front passenger seat. He was surprised to find another man in the back seat, Peng Zhan. Hello, Uncle Chu. Lin Yi greeted politely. Are you all right, Lin Yi? Peng Zhan asked, a kind smile on his face as he looked at Lin Yi. Lin Yi had always thought that Peng Zhan was being a little too nice to him. Was there some sort of secret behind all this, or? But since Peng Zhan wasn't going to talk about it, Lin Yi didn't press the issue. It's nothing, just a couple of Communist Party members trying to cause trouble at school. I taught them a lesson, and the police let me go after understanding the situation. That's good. Peng Zhan nodded. Yao Yao's situation, it's all thanks to you. I just heard about what happened yesterday from Li Fu. You did a great job. It's what I should do. Lin Yi, on the other hand, didn't think much of it. He'd taken Peng Zhan's money for free, after all. Right, how are you getting along with Yao Yao? She didn't kick you out again, did she? Peng Zhan felt a headache coming on at the thought of his daughter. No, Yao Yao is very easy to get along with. Lin Yi smiled. Naturally, he wouldn't tell on Meng Yao in front of Peng Zhan. That would be pure idiocy. No matter how naughty Meng Yao was, Peng Zhan had nothing but love for her. It'd be hell if he got fired for talking like that, and so he decided to praise Meng Yao at the right time. When Faubert heard Lin Yi's words, he opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but in the end, he didn't say anything. are you getting along well? Pingzhan seemed to be very happy with Lin Yi's words, a gratified smile on his face. Yao Yao is actually a good kid, just a little headstrong. You just have to give in to her a little more. Don't worry, Uncle Chu, I will. Lin Yi agreed without hesitation, but he remembered what the baldy had said in the robber's car yesterday. Uncle Chu, there's something I should talk to you about. Lin Yi hesitated before deciding to talk to Pingzhan. There's something I should tell you, Uncle Chu. Oh. Pingzhan paused, then smiled. What is it? Just say it. It's about what happened yesterday. It's about the bank robbery. Lin Yi said. How about this, let's find a place to talk about it. Faubert isn't an outsider, but he's driving. I don't want him to be distracted. Pingzhan nodded. Okay. It seemed like Lin Yi wouldn't be able to go to school today, so he might as well not go. Mr. Chu, are we going home? Faubert asked. Yes, let's go home, to the villa by the bay. Pingzhan ordered. The villa by the bay was Pingzhan's private villa, but he was always busy with business and didn't go home often. Most of the time, the villa was empty. Meng Yao, on the other hand, lived in Pingzhan's villas in the city for the convenience of going to school. The villas were built by Pingzhan Industries, and Meng Yao, of course, lived here because Yushu lived here as well. The two had been best friends since elementary school, and their relationship couldn't get any tighter than that. Pingzhan's villa, on the other hand, was built in the suburbs, taking up a large piece of empty land. It was surrounded by green grass and flowers, and there was a road in the middle that led to the main building of the villa. Of course, this was private property, and outsiders weren't allowed to enter. Upon entering the door, Faubert shone a laser card on the door, and the door opened slowly. Lin Yi glanced at the brand of the door opener. It should be the most advanced rolling code opening system in the world. Even if the card was lent to someone else, it wouldn't be able to be duplicated. The code between the door opening system and the card was unique, and the MCU in the card calculated the code and fed it back to the door opening system. But it wasn't unbreakable. Of course, Lin Yi didn't mention it, because this was considered very safe for civilians. But, if yesterday's incident wasn't investigated properly, then Lin Yi would have to do some security upgrades to Mingyao's villa. He couldn't guarantee that he'd be by Mingyao's side 24 hours a day. The car stopped in front of the villa, and Faubert got out. He opened the door for Pingzhan and Lin Yi, and returned to the car after Lin Yi and Pingzhan got out. Faubert isn't coming in with us. Lin Yi heard from Pingzhan that Faubert wasn't an outsider, so he asked. He's going to park the car in the garage, and he'll be back soon. Pingzhan could tell what Lin Yi was thinking, and he patted Lin Yi's shoulder with a smile. Li Fu has been with me for more than 10 years. If there's anything urgent when I'm not around, you can just tell Faubert. Lin Yi nodded. Faubert must be a very trustworthy person if Pingzhan said so. The decorations in the villa couldn't be considered luxurious, but it wasn't the kind of luxurious ones. Instead, it leaned towards elegance and classicalness. It could be seen that Pingzhan was a person with good taste, different from the average nouveau riche. Sit anywhere, don't be shy, treat this like your own home. Pingzhan personally found a pair of slippers for Lin Yi, and placed it in front of Lin Yi. This action, on the other hand, made Lin Yi feel a little flattered. But, the more he thought about it, the more he felt that Pingzhan was being too close to him. It didn't seem like he was treating a subordinate like this, but more like he was treating his own family. Thank you, Uncle Chu. Lin Yi didn't act too pretentiously. He put on the slippers after thanking Pingzhan. Chapter 63. The mastermind, alright, let's talk in the study. Pingzhan gestured with his hand as he led Lin Yi to the second floor. The study was at the end of the second floor, perhaps because they didn't want to be disturbed, but there wasn't even a housekeeper in this spacious villa. What difference did it make? Perhaps this villa had once been bustling and glorious, but now it was completely deserted. This was what Lin noticed when he went upstairs. The villa was very clean, but there were signs of wear and tear on the handrails. This meant that someone had lived in this villa for a long time, unlike now, where Pingzhan rarely came back once a week. But Lin, naturally, wouldn't ask about this. This was Pingzhan's family business, and it had nothing to do with Lin. As a result, Lin maintained a calm attitude, unfazed in the face of danger. The wear and tear on the leather chair in the study was proof of that as well. Pingzhan must have sat in this chair a lot in the past. Take a seat, Pingzhan said as he sat down on the leather chair behind the desk. He gestured to Lin. There's a fresher cabinet in the back, there's drinks in there. Take whatever you want. Don't worry, it won't expire. Li Fu will replace it regularly. I'm not thirsty. Lin shook his head. Uncle Chu, let's get down to business first. Alright, let's begin. Pingzhan nodded, signaling for Lin to begin. It's like this, I'm sure you already know that the robbers yesterday weren't after the bank, but Miss Chu. Lin said. I don't understand why they'd go through so much trouble to kidnap Miss Chu. It would have been easier to kidnap her from the school or the villa. Are you trying to remind me to investigate the true purpose of these people? Pingzhan said with a smile. Indeed, you're right, they might have gone through a lot of trouble to kidnap Miss Chu, but they have a reason for it. What reason? Lin didn't think that Pingzhan would have thought of this, it seemed like he was overthinking things. Confuse. Pingzhan put away his smile and said seriously, this way, people will think that they didn't kidnap Yao Yao, but used her as a hostage during the bank robbery. These were two different natures that could mislead the police's investigation. This way, the police would see this case as a robbery and not a kidnapping case. This would give the robbers enough time to make their next move. But, what I don't understand is, how did they calculate Yao Yao would appear in the bank at that time? I've done some analysis on this. Yesterday, the school instructed everyone to apply for a bank card so that they can deposit their tuition fees. After school ends, the banks will close for the day. There's only one 24-hour bank in the vicinity, so if Miss Chu wants to apply for a bank card, she'll definitely go to that bank. Lin voiced his thought. He hadn't thought of what Pingzhan had said before, since he didn't know what these people's true intentions were, or what they really wanted. So Pingzhan's words gave Lin an idea. These people are after you. Probably. Pingzhan nodded. This time, when I went to negotiate the contract, the other party gave a lot of harsh conditions, and I didn't agree to them. They didn't make any concessions either, they just kept dragging it out, as if they were waiting for something. Now that I think about it, Yao Yao's incident happened at that time, and these two things might be related. Oh. Lin raised an eyebrow. So that's the case. No wonder Pingzhan said that these people robbed the bank to mislead the police's investigation. After all, if the direction of the investigation was wrong, the time needed to solve the case would be delayed, and this would give the robbers more time. If what Pingzhan said was true, then as long as the robbers hinted that Meng Yao was in their hands, wouldn't Pingzhan obediently sign that unfair contract? The more I think about it, the more likely it is. It's just that I don't have any evidence. Pingzhan sighed, but, at this level, what can evidence do? Who are these people? Lin understood immediately after hearing Pingzhan's words. The robbers must be on par with Pingzhan in terms of strength, otherwise they wouldn't have dared to do something like this. No wonder the Baldy said that he wouldn't let Ma Lu touch Meng Yao other than Meng Yao. He was probably just trying to scare Pingzhan. If Ma Lu really did touch Meng Yao, Ping-Zhan would probably go all out for revenge, even if he didn't care about the consequences. It would be a lose-lose situation, and the robbers obviously didn't want that to happen. Lin Yi let out a sigh of relief at the thought. The robbers didn't want to do anything to Meng Yao, so Meng Yao's safety wasn't a problem at all. You don't have to worry about this, I'll take care of it. I, Ping-Zhan, am no pushover, trying to use this kind of method to force me to submit. Ping-Zhan paused here and waved his hand. Forget it, let's not talk about this. Just take good care of Yao Yao, remember to give her some love. Her mother left when she was young. And I'm always busy with my business. I lack love. Ping-Zhan sighed. Her mother left when she was young. Lin Yi sighed to himself. The miss was really pitiful, losing her mother at a young age and having a busy father all day. What was the difference between that and having no parents at all? Lin Yi was an orphan as well. Naturally, he could understand the bitterness of the situation. He nodded. Don't worry, Uncle Chu, I can understand Miss Chu's feelings, forgive me. What an evil word game. When Lin Yi heard Ping-Zhan say that Meng Yao's mother left, he thought that her mother had passed away. The word left did indeed have that meaning. But in reality, what Ping-Zhan meant was that the Mrs. Mother had really left, not died. That's why Lin Yi made such a huge mistake. Yes, that's why I asked you to come and keep her company, you too. Forget it, let's not talk about this for now. It's a bit sudden to talk about it now, it's not too late to talk about it in the future. Ping-Zhan hesitated, deciding to talk to Lin Yi about his father and elder Lin's decision later. He was afraid that Lin Yi wouldn't be able to accept it right now. Lin Yi didn't know what Ping-Zhan wanted to say, but since he said to talk about it later, Lin Yi couldn't ask any more. He could only wait for Ping-Zhan to take the initiative to tell him. Since these people aren't after Miss Chu's life, then I'm relieved. Lin Yi thought to himself. It'd be terrible if the miss died beside him. Not only would he lose his salary, but he'd also have to take responsibility for it. More importantly, no one had died beside him before. Chapter 64. Quick detection. Faubert's voice came from outside the study not long after the two were done talking about Meng Yao's family. Lin Yi wasn't sure if he'd waited for the two to finish their conversation before knocking, or if he'd just happened to come up at that moment. Ping-Zhan had said that Faubert was a trustworthy person, but Lin Yi had the feeling that Ping-Zhan was hiding something from him. He'd asked Lin Yi to accompany Meng Yao not just for a study companion, a babysitter, and a bodyguard, but for a deeper reason. Ping-Zhan didn't say what it was, and Lin Yi believed that Faubert wasn't privy to it either. Ping-Zhan was probably the only one who knew. Mr. Chu, I've parked the car. May I come in? Come in, I was just talking to Yi about yesterday's incident. Ping-Zhan said. Faubert pushed the door open and sat down on the sofa beside Lin Yi. We were talking about why the kidnappers chose the bank earlier, and he said that it's because the school requires every student to get a bank card to save their tuition and fees. Ping-Zhan continued the topic when he saw Faubert come in. From this, we can see that there's someone in Yao Yao's school. The kidnappers wouldn't have chosen this time to rob a bank. Yes. Lin Yi nodded. That's what I was thinking, too. Besides, I think this person should be a staff member of the school, not a student. Only a staff member would know about these things beforehand, and by the time the students knew about it, it'd already be time for school to end. It'd be too late for the kidnappers to make preparations. Not bad. Ping-Zhan nodded approvingly, pleased with Lin Yi's intelligence. I'll look into the school as well. But... Never mind, let's not talk about that. What, is there a problem? Isn't Uncle Chu one of the directors of the school? Lin Yi asked curiously. Shouldn't it be easier for Pingzhan to look into things in the school? I'm a trustee, yes, but there are 3 trustees in the school, and each of them owns a portion of the school's shares. You can imagine how difficult it would be to investigate. Pingzhan didn't hide it from Lin Yi, since it wasn't anything confidential. I see. I'll keep an eye out when I go to school then, Lin Yi said after listening to Pingzhan's explanation. At this point, Lin Yi had a general idea of what was going on. The kidnappers didn't want Meng Yao for money or her life, but they wanted to use Meng Yao to force Pingzhan to compromise on their business partnership. Moreover, the kidnappers did not choose other places to carry out the kidnapping completely to confuse the police and delay time. If Pingzhan's daughter had been kidnapped, one could only imagine how much effort the police would put into searching for the kidnappers. Meng Yao would have been found by the police before they could achieve their goal. It was true that Huaijuan had taken over the bank robbery case as soon as he'd returned to the criminal police, but the case was a piece of cake for Huaijuan. Huaijuan made a call to the city's command center, and pulled up the surveillance footage from the streets around the bank yesterday. Ling Shan only realized how stupid she was at this point. Digital Qingguan had only been used in Songshan for less than a month, but Huaijuan's sharp senses had memorized all this information. Digital Qingguan, also known as Digital City Management, referred to the use of information technology and mobile communication technology to process, analyze, and manage all of the city's components and incidents. It was an information technology that promoted the modernization of city management. The city management department had installed surveillance cameras on every main street, monitoring the area around the clock to monitor the sanitation, traffic flow, and so on. Ling Shan had thought of going to the traffic police to get the recordings, but unfortunately, the traffic police's recording equipment only worked when the traffic lights were red, and they could only record cars that broke the rules. The equipment was off at other times. Ling Shan had no choice but to give up. What she didn't expect was for Huaijuan to think of using the surveillance footage to solve the case. It seemed simple enough, but it only meant one thing: she wasn't careful enough. Things that seemed to be insignificant to the job often played an unexpected role at the critical moment. With the surveillance video, everything became much easier. Because the city management's round-the-clock surveillance camera had just been activated recently, it was still in the trial stage. Not many people knew about it, so the kidnappers couldn't possibly know about it. In fact, they didn't know about it either. On the road that Zhang Xiaohang was responsible for, not long after the first Song A74110 car left, a second commercial van with the license plate of Song A74110 passed by. Without a doubt, this was the car that the robbers were in. What happened next was that they followed the clues and locked onto the approximate location of the kidnapper's car. The reason for the approximate location was because the surveillance cameras were only installed in the city, and not in some of the more secluded streets. They could only use the footage to determine the location of the kidnappers. But even so, it was more than enough. The search was much easier now that the area had been narrowed down to a certain extent. Pin Liang had been in a state of panic the entire day. He didn't think that a country bumpkin transfer student would be this strong. He'd been pissed off yesterday, and now he'd beaten up one of the school's bosses, Zhou Ruoming. He'd thought that Zhou Ruoming was going to die a horrible death, but it was Heibao Bro he'd found that got beaten up. Pin Liang finally understood the difference in strength. Heibao Bro couldn't beat Lin Yi even with a gun, so what could he possibly do? But he couldn't act too weak in front of Naipeo and Xiaofu too. He hated Lin Yi to the bone, but he was also scared to the bone. Normal methods wouldn't work on Lin Yi, and he'd have to think of something else if he wanted revenge. Liang Bro, why is this Lin Yi so strong? Xiaofu said, a little displeased. But isn't that Heibao Bro a little too weak? I thought he'd be more capable, but he's about the same as us yesterday. Yeah, he's such a coward with a gun. If I were him, I'd shoot that Lin Yi kid. Naipeo said angrily. Xiaofu and Naipeo had never been in the underworld before, and they'd only heard Pinliang talk about how strong Heibao Bro was. They didn't think much of it after seeing him today. Chapter 65. Chapter 65, Do you like him? Zhou Ruoming was just as shocked. Zhou Ruoming decided to keep his distance from Lin Yi after seeing how half-dead Heibao Bro was. The guy was a madman, and Zhou Ruoming didn't want to die just yet. It was a little depressing for him, the second in command of the school, to be afraid of a transfer student. Zhou Ruoming, on the other hand, thought that they'd mind their own business and mind their own business. As long as he didn't provoke Lin Yi, it shouldn't affect him, right? Zhou Ruoming couldn't help but feel pleased at the thought that motherfucker Pinliang had nothing better to do than provoke a transfer student. He hadn't even gotten to the bottom of the guy's background yet, and he was already trying to mess with Pinliang. Was he tired of living? Hey, Yao Yao, do you think Lin Yi's going to be okay? That Lingshan's acting all high and mighty, it's like she's trying to mess with Lin Yi on purpose. Yushu whispered to Meng Yao, who was flipping through her English textbook. Who cares, it's better if he gets arrested and sentenced. He won't have to bother me anymore. Meng Yao humphed. My dad's saving his salary too. You really don't care about him. Yushu looked at Meng Yao with a half-smile. Shoo, what's with that look? Meng Yao frowned. Why would I care about him? Alright, let's not talk about him. I still need to study. Oh, alright. Yushu pointed at the English textbook in Meng Yao's hands with a smile. Yao Yao, you're holding your English book upside down. You've been reading for so long, you're really something. Ah. Meng Yao blushed as she looked at the book in her hands. She quickly closed the book in a panic and glanced at Yushu before opening it again. She pouted. Alright, I just don't want anything to happen to him because of me. After all, I'm the one who started this. I'm the one who told him to deal with Pinliang. I've already called Faubert. He'll take care of it. Ha! Yushu smiled, but her face was full of doubt. Yushu's smile made Meng Yao feel a little uncomfortable. She shrunk her neck, feeling that Yushu was staring at her with a burning gaze. However, Yao suddenly thought of something. Oh right, on the other hand, student Shu, you seem to be more concerned about Lin Yi than I am. Have you fallen for him? Me? Yeah, I like him, so what? Yushu grinned at Meng Yao as if it wasn't something embarrassing. Yushu let out a breath of relief when she heard that Meng Yao had contacted Faubert. She knew what Faubert was capable of in Songshan, and she'd wanted to call her grandpa. Ha! Meng Yao's mouth was agape as she stared at Yushu in disbelief. You like him? Ha, I like him, why are you in such a hurry? Can't even speak properly. Are you jealous? Yushu giggled as she looked at Meng Yao's face. Jealous? If you like him, then go after him. I bet that guy's so pretty he's got snot coming out of his nose. Meng Yao's expression changed to one of disapproval. All right. Then I'll go after him. Don't regret it later. Yushu said with a serious face. Who'll regret it, haha. Meng Yao shook her head nonchalantly, but the words made her feel a little uncomfortable. She didn't know why, but it made her feel uneasy. I'm lying. Ha! Yushu didn't continue after seeing that she wasn't teasing Meng Yao. I just don't like Lingshan. She can't touch one of our people if she wants to. Yeah. Lin Yi may be my follower, but he's still one of my people. Meng Yao didn't know why, but she let out a sigh of relief after hearing Yushu's explanation. It was an inexplicable feeling, but Meng Yao didn't think too much about it. Pin Liang looked calm and collected in front of Naipeo and Xiaofu, but he was actually more afraid than anyone else. It wasn't that he was afraid of Lin Yi's revenge, but that Heibao Bro would drag him out of the police station. He'd become the mastermind of the whole thing, and who knew if he'd be dragged into this. His father would definitely punish him severely, and he might even have to transfer schools. Pin Liang was getting more and more annoyed when he saw Meng Yao and Yushu talking and laughing not too far away. He was a famous person in the school, but he didn't even have a girlfriend. What a joke. Zhou Ruoming, on the other hand, had gone through so many girlfriends by now that he was a tyrant in the school. He heard that he was going after some commoner beauty, Tang Yun. Truth be told, Pin Liang only started paying attention to Tang Yun after hearing that Zhou Ruoming was going after her. She was a beautiful girl, and although she was wearing a school uniform, it couldn't hide her beauty. Compared to princesses like Meng Yao and Yushu, however, she was still a little lacking. Meng Yao and Yushu were from prestigious families, and they had luxurious cars to and from school. Tang Yun, on the other hand, wasn't as eye-catching as Meng Yao and Yushu. Meng Yao and Yushu were from prestigious families, and they had luxurious cars to and from school. Tang Yun, on the other hand, wasn't that eye-catching. Her body was even better than Meng Yao and Yushu's, but Meng Yao and Yushu's statuses were higher than theirs. Pin Liang, on the other hand, wasn't afraid of other flies getting to her first. In this school, he was the only one who dared to go after Meng Yao. As a result, Pin Liang wasn't in a rush. He had enough patience to take Meng Yao down. It was just that Lin Yi's appearance had ruined his original plan. He'd called Heibao Bro to school in a fit of rage, not caring about the consequences, and even more so when Heibao Bro pulled out his gun. Everything had changed in an instant, from a gangster wreaking havoc in school to a gang member with a gun. Pin Liang was afraid that Heibao Bro wouldn't be able to take it anymore, and if that happened, he might not even be able to stay in school, let alone pursue Meng Yao. Lin Yi walked out of the police station, and looked at his phone. It was already 11 in the afternoon. There weren't any classes at this time, and he was worried about Huaijuan's injury. He'd come in a hurry, and he hadn't brought any Eastern medicine books with him. Lin Yi hesitated, and hailed a taxi. To the biggest bookstore in the city. Young man, the biggest bookstores in the city are Xinhua Bookstore and Shuahai Bookstore. They're about the same size, but what kind of books are you looking for? The taxi driver asked. Oh. What's the difference between the two bookstores? I'm looking for medical books. Lin Yi's old man had brought his books back from the city, and he'd never bought them himself. You're tuning in to the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.